That's just how I do my pods. I just run right into it.
You should absolutely.
Yeah. Paul, thank you for coming, man.
Hey,
thank you.
Thanks for having me.
No, this is a pleasure. I watched this movie. I don't even know how long ago. I didn't watch it when it first came out, and because to be honest, it was like hard to find.
Well, yeah, because media was hiding it. It took us 5 years to get Sound of Freedom off the ground. After we finished it, we were blocked everywhere. And then even then, when we were literally out of the gates, we beat Indiana Jones. We beat Mission Impossible. I mean, it was the #1 independent film in the world. And it was
more than The Godfather when it first came out.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
But you know, we're going in the face of things that Hollywood and big media don't want us to talk about.
This is really why I brought you on. I wanted to talk about this kind of stuff. Like, how does that even make sense? So we're talking about something that is so heinous against children, and they don't want it publicized. Hollywood doesn't want it publicized. I mean, that has to be very telling of for what purpose would you not want that to be publicized?
Well, because there's so many people involved. I mean, it's obvious. It's when you see how lightly they handled the P. Diddy thing, you know that there's corruption everywhere. I mean, this guy was having freak-off parties for 16 years. The feds already knew what was going on. There were kids there. There's verified underage minors at his freak-off parties, and nobody's pushing it. Right?
Oh,
it's crazy.
I didn't know that was a verified thing. I thought he was just doing weird with his girl.
He was doing a lot
and
of
like dudes and all kinds of weird.
He was.
I didn't know there was kids involved in that stuff.
Well, not like kids, but you know, you've got a number of celebrity actors who were talking about being at his parties when they were 14, 15 years old.
Yeah,
Justin Bieber brothers, and
yeah.
So you're like, okay, so this is.
You've seen that clip of when he's like, looks like he's patting down Justin Bieber for a wire.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But so what were the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome? Because like it seems so crazy that we're even having this conversation, that you're executive producing this film about child trafficking, and you get so much resistance to it being able to be rolled out in a way that like any sort of movie could have been.
Yeah.
Like what were the main things that were stopping you?
Well, right in the beginning, we had Fox International was part of the filming in Colombia, and so they had the international marketing rights on it. And then Disney, this is after we had filmed it, and in the midst of us doing all of the editing, Disney bought out Fox, and then they would not do distribution at all. And they're like, they had all these stupid excuses of, it won't do well. The people won't like whatever. And
so Disney bought out the production company.
Oh, they bought Fox International,
yeah.
Not the production company, but the company that helped us with some of the filming that had the rights of distribution. And so then finally we were able to buy that out from them. That took a long time.
So Disney, the company that is known for children movies and for making like things for kids, was like, yeah, no, we don't want this to really go
down a rabbit hole. Just
like what are we? How are we even?
Disney, the company that brings us Pinocchio and Peter Pan. So go down those rabbit holes and find out what the real story is of the pedophilia twist on Pinocchio and on Peter Pan and others. And so yeah, it was Disney.
It's like almost like just. It's like startling to know that that's the truth.
Yeah.
And so you were met with that resistance, and then what was the rollout like? It was hard to get it into certain.
No. So even after that, so we finally were able to get it out from Disney, and then another former Disney executive says, "Oh, now those guys, they just didn't know what they're doing, whatever else." He tied it up for another year. He's like, "I'll put."
I know how to tie this up better.
Exactly. Contractually, he's like, yeah, I'll put $20 million into distribution, all this other stuff, and nothing, not 20 million, not 10, not 5, 0, not 1 penny did he bring in. We're like, so finally we got that out. By that time, now we're like, okay, let's go out. We went to Amazon, we went to Netflix. Netflix turns us down. Now Netflix at the same time was bringing people the TV series Cuties. These are 10-year-olds dressed up as strippers, yet they turned down Sound of Freedom. Are you kidding me?
Bro, it just, oh my God. Why do you think this is happening?
Because there's an agenda.
Yeah.
There's an agenda. See, here's something crazy. So when we finally got the distribution put together with Sound of Freedom with Angel Studios. So Angel Studios is they're the company that brought the TV series The Chosen, which is kind of the life of Jesus stuff. So they already had a pretty big conservative audience to help push it out. An interesting story on them. Years ago, Angel, their predecessor company, was sued by Hollywood. You know why they were sued?
No.
Because they had created a piece of hardware and a piece of software that allows you and I, as you know, do you have kids?
I don't have kids.
Okay, so I got kids, right? Yeah. So if I wanted to show, let's say I really liked, I don't know, Porky's 2. Let's say I really like Porky's 2, but I want to show it to my kids. I didn't want to have sex and vulgarity and whatever. I don't know why I'd show that to my kids. But either way, if you have a movie that you wanted to show to your kids, but you wanted to filter out the vulgarity, the blasphemy, the nudity, whatever it is, they had a piece of software that you could actually click it down, from 10 all the way to 1. I'll make it a PG movie, whatever, right? And so Hollywood sued them for simply giving parents the tools that they could filter things coming into their home. It's crazy.
So what do you think the agenda is?
I think that the breakdown of the nuclear family is a big part of it. I think that there's a darker agenda that goes back a long time. We can get into this with the Epstein stuff and whatever. There was a book. There's a book called Pawns in the Game by William Carr.
Yeah.
Written a long time ago. And he was high-level military intelligence. And he talks about and he takes kind of a religious kind of a slant on it. And he claims that the Rothschild family, way back in the beginning, Baron Rothschild made a covenant with the Luciferian order to bring humanity into a state of slavery in exchange for unlimited wealth, massive abundance of cash for his family and power in all ways. And so you follow, and then he'll drop a bomb in this book. He'll drop a bomb. He'll say, okay, World War II, World War I. All of this stuff was all orchestrated on purpose, and the control of the media, the control of the governments, the control of the banking system, all of that was something that was put together right in the beginning by some of these really powerful families. So we think that our political leaders are really making the decision. Yeah, we have another thing coming, right? There's guys that are pulling those strings with all the puppets, and
it's always felt that way to me.
Yeah,
I think when it really hit me was COVID. For me, it was personal because it was like I had a gym in California. They wanted to close it down, and I they're coming. They're like trying to shut my gym down for like the whole time. I go to court like 8 times over all these years, or all those 2 years. And you just recognize that there's no real reason for any of that. And then you start to really question why. Like, why is this even a thing? Why are we forced to, in their words, or you're not forced, but you can't have a job, or you can't go to school, or you can't. So all these like back and forth things. And that was the first moment for me that I was, I guess, at least in my adult life, that I was like, this is really very strange.
Diabolical almost.
And then seeing how people would just mindlessly follow because of the left or the right sort of speaking points. And I think that's the thing that got me really disengaged with kind of like religion in a way, but the government fully. And it's always just felt like a giant show. Like, I really do feel like it's been that way forever. I don't know when it started. Maybe it's when you're starting about this Rothschild thing.
I think it starts way before that. I have the book Sound of Freedom that came out. I've got another one, Are You Listening? We talk about it. I've got one I'm going to piss off about 2.5 billion Christians and about 2 billion Muslims and all the governments. It's called 10,000 Years of Deceit. Because you and I are in the same boat there. I think that our leaders, the day will come where we'll people are starting to wake up right now, and they're recognizing that we've been lied to. We've been lied to by our doctors. We've been lied to by our political leaders. We've been lied to by our religious leaders for thousands of years. And it's super important that everybody starts waking up and saying, hey, okay, where is the truth? What is their agenda? Is it all just power and greed? Is that what it's all about? Or is there something darker even?
Yeah, I mean, that's where my mind tends to go, is like, that's what it is. But then you if you sort of zoom out and you look at it, the people that already have, the control and the power. I mean, they essentially have unlimited money. The way that they're able to manipulate the system, the economy, and inflation, all this kind of printing money. Being if they own the banks as well, it's like an unlimited source of power. So is there something more that they're after, or is it just it started to just really feel like good versus evil?
It absolutely is.
And
Control versus freedom. This is why I named my new foundation Liberating Humanity, because that's what it's about. That's what this fight is it's the control of the human mind, the control of humanity, or the liberation of humanity. And I believe that this is a war that's been fought for millions of years, billions of years. This is light and dark, and this is something that freedom of choice allows for expansion and creation, and that the opposite is restriction and damnation. Really.
Yeah, and it seems like the powers that be or that are in control want everyone to sort of either argue about red and blue, about race, about religion, about skin color. Like that's the sort of narrative that, if we're talking about who's these controlling factors in our lifetime, the media, Hollywood, all these things, they don't want you to see certain things like this, the sort of film that you created, but they also want us to just argue about everything so that we hate each other and so that we don't recognize what's actually happening. And also the power that I think we actually do truly have.
The power that we have when we're united.
Yeah.
When we recognize that you and I are truly brothers, we're truly connected, and it wouldn't matter if this is another religion, another skin color, it doesn't matter. We are all energetically connected. We're all part of this universal one, and the more they can divide us, the more they can keep us in slavery. That's really what it's about. So it's dividing the families, it's dividing races, it's dividing people. All of this, it's all division. And the sad thing is that religions are one of the biggest culprits of this division. I mean, you see what's happening in the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
Literally, they're throwing missiles at each other. Why? Because a few thousand years ago, some dude, Abraham, had 2 sons and we have to decide which of those sons gets the birthright, the love of God. So an entire people gets the love of God more than another group of people. I think birthright is bullshit. I'm just throwing that out. So,
yeah, it's also like the way that it's all written to me too is also interesting, because we talk about these sort of scriptures, and it seems like they can be interpreted in many different ways depending on whatever your perspective is or whatever you want the outcome to be. And it seems like people sort of just create whatever narrative that suits themselves
in every way.
Yeah.
In every way. And what we have to do to really get to the truth is once people start to become awakened, we're awakened to the COVID thing. Okay, now let's dig deep. And at one time, Fauci was God, right? We would listen at 6 feet away. Everybody, he said it obviously must be true. And now we're questioning it. We have to go back and question all those things.
And then he has to be pardoned for what?
Exactly. And so you need to do that on religious things too. I would encourage people to do some research on Constantine. 325 years after Jesus, all of a sudden he's the one that decides which writings get kept, which ones are burned, who gets burned and killed if you believe something different. Yet Constantine, we should look at him as the Fauci, right? We should look at him as the decision maker. Constantine killed his son. He boiled his wife to death. Yet he was the one that decides, and it was all based on him wanting to consolidate his power. He was the emperor, and he realized, okay, only certain people will fight to expand Rome, to expand for Constantine. But what if I tell them all that I saw this sign of the cross in the clouds, and we put a cross on every one of their shields, and we tell them their swords are crosses, and they're fighting for God, not for me. It's all about power and greed and it's
that's
crazy.
The thing that's always hung me up with religion was that it's this word of God but written by human.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then in the idea that humans would just take in the way that how could I benefit from this though?
People ask me, when I start going down these roads, they're like, "So Paul, are you Christian?" My answer is, in the purest sense of the word. If Yeshua, his name wasn't even Jesus. If Yeshua actually spoke it, yes. But the problem is most of the stuff that we're being fed is all division and fear and hatred and guilt and shame. So we can go down a whole rabbit hole there that has nothing to do with Epstein and it kind of has everything to do with
Yeah, well, it seems like it's all
the same thing.
it's the good and evil conversation.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm stuck, man, because I want to believe, because I'll talk to people and they'll say, oh, it's a Jewish thing, or oh, Christians believe this, and this would be better if it was Christian led or Catholic led. And it's so hard for me to get behind these things. Now, the one thing that I am starting to have a problem with is who are most of the people that are in control or in power in these companies or in these positions in the government that are causing such division. And it's like I can't get around who these people are. And it's a little bit of a taboo subject to talk about, but the more you look into it and the more you start to realize it, the less you can look away from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then you have to question why.
It's back to what we started with. It's control. It's control of humanity. We're going down. We're going into this phase of control. They're already controlling our minds with our algorithms and what they're erasing. I mean, I was just coming on today. I remember most people remember, just if they were following the Epstein story at all, that there was just a number of months ago, it was everywhere that there was 14 terabytes of video footage.
Yeah, thousands
yeah, 14 terabytes of it. However, now they have some badass power. It's been deleted. Try to find anywhere of the verification of that 14 terabytes. It's like crickets all of a sudden. They're taking all of the stuff that we all knew, we were all told, and then wiping it. Oh,
sort of like rewriting of history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what do you think? What do you think that all was like? Because you were in certain situations in this actual world of child trafficking, like you've experienced it.
Yeah,
firsthand.
I wasn't just the guy who I was the primary investor in Sound of Freedom, but I have led or played a key part in over 70 undercover child rescue missions in 15 countries. I've seen the darkest.
So I know there's a lot of stuff in Colombia.
Yeah, the first one was Colombia.
Yeah.
I did a whole bunch in Mexico. We did a bunch in Dominican Republic. We did a bunch in Haiti. We did some stuff in Amsterdam. We did some stuff in Iraq and Syria. We did some stuff in Peru, in Ecuador, in where else did we go? A bunch in South America. We were in Costa Rica and in Nicaragua and in Guatemala. So pretty much all of Latin America.
So I guess my question to that, do you, who are the patrons of this child trafficking? Who are these people?
Well, it's
they're not just like dudes who work down the street at Ralph's.
No, and that's the reason I was recruited in the first place. I set this picture 10 years ago. I wasn't Paul Hutchinson. I was Paul Hutchinson. I had built a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah,
I had a lifestyle that rivaled guys like Jeffrey Epstein in terms of money, right? And now I wasn't doing anything illegal, but I was in an energy of arrogance and greed and lust. I had parties at my house every other weekend with NBA players and half-dressed girls and doing body shots on my pool table. I don't regret it. Of course. I really don't.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic way of me kind of learning that brought me to where I am today. That's one of the reasons. That, and I had some training, some, as they would say, a certain set of skills from a previous life that made me somewhat safe in a dangerous place. And I was recruited to go on this mission in Colombia.
Wait, what sort of training did you go through?
Have you heard of Krav Maga?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, a lot of people are regular arts is bow to your sensei, 3 points when you kick him in the leg. Krav is brick to their head, go home to your family. Israeli Special Forces. Every move, they don't talk, they don't see, they don't walk. And I've been training with that and others for many years. But I'm not like a triple black belt or anything. I had enough to keep me safe.
What was that for originally?
I always felt like I'd be in a war. I don't know why when I was a kid, but I didn't want to join the military, but I got really good at guns. I got really good at knife fighting, situational awareness, improvised weapons and whatever. Even when I was building my investment fund, my business partner,
that was just a hobby. You weren't it wasn't some sort of specific military.
It was a every week hobby, every day hobby. But every week I'd do like 8 hours of training on a Saturday type stuff.
I get it.
So, and, But then fast forward, I was funding some of the missions for some guys in another foundation that were rescuing kids in Colombia. And one of them called me and he said, Paul, he said, we found over 100 kids down here. I need your help. And I'm like, well, how much do you need? He said, I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days? He said, I have to have somebody who can play this role of this wealthy real estate playboy.
And that's who you kind of actually were.
That's what I was.
Yeah, that's who you were.
I was.
Yeah.
As it come as me. That's exactly
So
what I mean, when he called me, I had a conservative blue suit on with bright pink on the inside. I had $2,000 cufflinks. I had a $50,000 watch. I'm like, I think I got the outfit.
Yeah.
Right. So, I fly down there and that's when I recognized how dark this problem was. And these guys showed up with 2 boats full of kids. These boats were the size of school buses, 54 kids.
And they're just kids that are they're just in prison, basically.
Yeah. Now, here's the crazy thing. Some of these kids, they were taken from other countries. Some of them were going to sleep in their own beds that night, and their parents had no idea what was going on. And that's something we can talk about in ways that parents can keep their kids safe, et cetera.
So that was because they're trying to make money? Like the kids themselves are trying to make money?
No. What happens is they'll, like, for example, you need to have a relationship with your kids where they can very comfortably come to you and say, hey, Mom, I don't like going to this friend's house because her brother takes pictures of us when we're changing. And now he says he's going to send those pictures around the school unless we, go with him to this party this weekend and whatever else. It's blackmail, it's control. It happens all the time. It happens in our own backyards in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, every day there are kids. There are so many kids who are being abused. In fact, 1 out of every 4 women that we know have been a victim of sexual abuse as a child. 92% of them, it was somebody that they knew, and most of them never talk about it. And so, that's where I recognize that the darkness went. But back what we were talking about of the demand for this thing, after I saw it firsthand, and they had brought all these kids, and this little girl standing in front of me was like tear stains in her makeup face, and she was shaking. She was 11, and I thought, what the hell? How is this okay anywhere? Now, yeah, I had 4 girls in my room, the week before, whatever. But kids, are you kidding me? And so I made a promise to myself, to that child, to kids everywhere, to God, that I was going to dedicate my life to fighting that evil. And I turned to the operator. I said, "Bro," I said, I spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I want to make a difference. What do you need? And he said, Paul, there's a huge percentage of the demand for stuff like this that comes from guys who walk and dress and talk like you. He said, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life.
Why do you think more people don't get involved in it at that level? It sounds like you had tons of money. I think maybe it's got to be like a personal passion thing to go do.
I didn't want to do it in the beginning.
Yeah.
I couldn't even believe that it existed. That was just too dark, right? But it wasn't until I was sitting there and saw it firsthand that's what tipped the scale for me.
But so in those situations, like at what point do you learn who the patrons are? They're just other rich dudes?
No, it's not all rich dudes. I mean, the reality is if 1 in every 4 women that we know is a victim of that as a child, you can be in an apartment complex, you can be in an affluent neighborhood. You can walk out, literally, we could walk out right here, look left, look right. There's a very high chance that one of those doors is a dangerous place for children.
I can't wrap my mind around why. That's the thing I'll never understand.
It's a, I will say, and this is gonna piss people off, but I do that a lot. I realized after 10 years of doing this work that almost every one of the traffickers, almost every one of them were involved in, they were trafficked as children. Themselves.
Yeah.
And most of the perpetrators had unhealed trauma that they hadn't fixed their shit. Now, I'm not saying that just because you've been through that, you're going to become a right?
Yeah.
Almost all of my operators had been abused as children themselves, and they grew up to be protectors. I mean, they instead of allowing that pain to hurt other people, they turned it into an energy of protection. The problem is that if somebody holds it inside and doesn't talk about it, then it festers, it gets infected, so to speak, all this pain from their childhood. Most guys are like, oh, that thing that happened to me when I was 8, I don't want to talk about it. It'll make me less of a man. No, it won't. You were 8. That was a horrible thing that happened from a horrible person that it created, that passed on his pain. Just the act of talking about it and releasing it takes the possibility of you being a hurt person that hurts other people down to way, way lower percentage. So encouraging people to say, hey, you know what? This was a difficult time. Here are some tools that you can use to overcome that, to break free of it. And that's really where my passion ended up. I realized that we're never gonna fix the problem pulling the kids out of hell. The only way we're gonna fix the problem is pulling the hell out of humanity. We've got to pull the hell out of the adults. We've got.
Do you think that's possible?
Absolutely.
Entirely?
Not entirely, but the ones that it's not possible, then we put them behind bars and
bury them under a prison.
Yeah, I told my operators, I said, I it's not our job to judge. That's God's job. But if we have to arrange that meeting, with God a little bit early, take them out. But I over time, I recognized that it was hurt people hurting people. Yeah. So how do we fix that? Just rescuing the kids. Yeah, we pull 20 kids out of hell, but then there are 20 more kids would be sucked back into this horrific position to be able to fulfill a demand. Yeah, so we've got to solve for the demand side.
We're going to talk about the Epstein stuff in a second, but let's dive into this topic a little bit more. The idea of hurt people hurting people, and I guess sort of self-awareness, and how have you personally found out more about yourself? Not that you're involved in any of these things, but what have you done for yourself that allows you to overcome your trauma? All right, guys, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is one of the easiest platforms on the internet for you guys to use. If you've ever thought about talk therapy, it works for a lot of people, not necessarily for every single person, but if you're trying and if you've been working on something, or if you need an outside unbiased perspective without worried about driving, to some appointment that might be far away, worried about traffic, whatever it is, all your excuses out the door, go to betterhelp.com. Give it a shot. It's worked for me in the past. It's something that I can't say I always do, but there's been times in my life when I've needed it, and it has helped me to just think about something a little bit differently. I encourage you guys to give it a shot. Go to BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/RAWTALK right now to get 10% off your first month. Take away the excuses. You don't have excuses. If you want to make your life better, if you've been thinking about something, you want to actually make real change, your thoughts, they're playing tricks on you, the people in your circle, their ideas of what you should or shouldn't do, playing tricks on you. Cut out all the nonsense, cut out all the bullshit. Go to someone with an unbiased perspective on whatever the situation is. Get a different, unique perspective. Give it a shot. betterhelp.com/RAWTALK. Let's get into this podcast.
Well, this is...
because that's the only way you can kind of know, right?
I'm glad you're sitting down for this part. I'm just going to go here, right? So 8 years ago, I got a call from 2 of my operators. They're like, Paul, do you trust us? I'm like, yeah, I trust you with my life, literally, on these missions. They said, you need to come to this healing retreat. I'm like, I don't need to heal. I'm Paul Hutchinson. Everybody wants to be me. They're like, no, you're in your second marriage, headed for a divorce. Your kids don't even talk to you. You think your happiness is going to come from one more car, one more helicopter, one more party,
This was 10 years ago.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. This is about 8 years ago. I was about 2 years into the, and I was doing the undercover stuff, but I was playing that role of that wealthy playboy type thing, right? And
you probably felt like a superhero at that point.
I kind of did, but you know what? It was feeding into my own problems because, I was doing the rescue missions. Now I had the best panty dropper story on the planet.
Yeah, you're saving kids now.
You're
going back
rich.
home throwing more parties.
I got this big ass house. I got a basketball court in my basement, right? and on my basketball court, I had built a stage with stripper poles on my stage, right? This is this energy that I had, and I'd have supercars all sitting out front and hot chicks in there and all this stuff. So they said, you need to come to this healing retreat. I'm like, all right, I'll come. I trust you. And now some people are going to go, oh shit, when I say this next part. This doctor was practicing the proper use, and this is so important, guys.
I know where this is going already.
Proper use of psychedelics when it comes to fixing your shit, right? Yeah. I'm not a fan whatsoever of somebody going to a rave party, getting high with their friends. You're actually going to create major problems in your subconscious mind. And I can talk in depth about that now. But at the time, I go in there. This facilitator gives me 6 grams of mushrooms. I can barely walk to the bathroom,
I've been
right?
there.
Yeah. And I'm like,
I've been there.
And then all of a sudden puts my headphones on and has this playlist. And I'm like laying there and And it was the most beautiful, horrific experience of my life. Horrific because I felt in every cell of my body, I felt the pain that my kids felt when I cheated on their mom, as if I was them. I was like, and it was probably worse than them. It felt like I had this foot on my chest. I could barely breathe, right? And then I could feel the pain of the family that broke up because some dude was at my party and slept with the cheerleader. His wife left him. And then I felt the ripple effect of my actions. You know, maybe a year, 2 years from now, this fatherless home, she's dating some dude, the daughter, or maybe, you know, the son gets addicted, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The ripple effect of my actions was so real and so profound. And then I also felt as if I was them, I could feel the joy of the kids that we helped to rescue as they were reunited with their families. And it was incredibly beautiful. And it was an ego death for me that was, it was second to none. And I came out of that recognizing that, okay, I could help the kids. We could make an impact here, but I didn't have to do so playing in the same energy. I actually looked in the mirror and I recognized the same energy as the traffickers. I wasn't doing anything illegal, but the common thread with these traffickers wasn't earrings in their noses and tattoos on their necks. The common thread was just like me, was arrogance and greed and lust.
Yeah.
You know? And so I'm like, okay, am I actually feeding that low frequency vibration to humanity that's contributing to the very thing that I'm fighting?
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how mushrooms, they don't make you feel or like see things that aren't there. Because I've done a lot of work with mushrooms. I've also done work with ayahuasca.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And these things, they don't necessarily make you, they 100% don't make you see or feel things that aren't there. They force you to see and feel things that are there and they've always been there.
Exactly.
And that's the beautiful part when you started to mention, you feel the pain and the ripple effect of where that pain might lead, you know, as far as like your actions and how you're showing up in your life and how it affects everyone around you and everything around you. That concept is true no matter if you're on mushrooms or off mushrooms. And the thing is, it's like destroying, like you talked about earlier, your subconscious. It's doing that regardless of your awareness of it or not.
Absolutely.
Whether you're making it in your conscious mind or not, it's in your subconscious. So that's the thing, like you talk about trauma and all these things that lead people to places where they're sort of rehashing the same traumas for someone else that were happening to them, right? You talk about these people who are in this circle. I think mushrooms and I think psychedelics in general, if done in a way that is therapeutic and sort of ceremoniously done, can be really healing to people to see all those things inside of them that they're just not, they're I think number one, you talk about ego death, like their ego, their protecting factor in their mind is not allowing them to fully recognize because it's so fucked up.
Absolutely.
So that's the beauty, I think, of psychedelics. I think when done in a way that's, you know, like I said, smart and guided and intentional, it can allow you to see what's really going on completely unfiltered.
Absolutely.
And that's the beautiful part. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Have you ever done ayahuasca? Or?
Yeah, in fact, I became a master facilitator. I have facilitated, and we've hosted and facilitated now over 80 full. We now do 5 to 7 day fully immersive transformational retreats. 12 of them have been ayahuasca, and 60 plus have been psilocybin and wachuma and some other things as well. So we've gotten really good at because it was so transformative for me. Yeah. I'm like, holy shit, this is like, nothing could have fixed Paul Hutchinson. I went to a therapist with my wife, and I'd pick a hot therapist so I could flirt with her. You know, this is the energy I was in.
You're a savage. It's so
seriously.
Funny. I get it though.
I was there. But here's the thing, you know, now from a scientific standpoint. So quick background, my early 20s, my first company I sold at 29 years old for 20 mil. Was a company that helped people overcome anxiety, depression, PTSD, addictions, and childhood trauma. We had 50,000 people a month calling in off of an infomercial to get a workbook, audio program, all of this stuff. But it was a cognitive restructuring thing that helped them change their negative habit patterns of thought. And it took us 12 weeks to kind of hammer at those things. So here's what happens. Here's the science that when we're little kids, 0 to 7, 8 years old, our brain is in a state of hyper neuroplasticity. We're really impressionable, right? We can learn 3 or 4 languages at the same time that we're learning how to eat and ride our bike and all these other things. And if something happens during that time, like, your uncle touches you, your dad says you look fat in that outfit, whatever it is, those things get embedded into our subconscious mind, and they're like stuck there. Now, 95% of our life is run by that subconscious mind. And now after that time, when we're not in that hyper neuroplasticity, it takes 21 days to create a new habit, right? You're going to right in, even driving your car, the brake, the gas, you're not thinking in your conscious mind. That's all subconscious that's driving.
Yeah.
Well, the psychedelic, the psilocybin or it creates a temporary state of hyper neuroplasticity. So if you come into it with a clear intention, you have the right facilitator, you have the right environment, the right music, all of this stuff, you can literally get 10 and 20 years worth of therapy done in 24 to 48 hours.
Because of the openness.
Because of the openness, because of that that neuroplasticity, and because it like thins the veil. I'm not going to, go religious here, but the veil meaning between this world and the spiritual world. Like what I felt in actually connecting with my kids and every person that I had hurt or helped in my life as if I was them. That oneness was created. And it simply pulled back these walls that were
we create, for sure. Yeah. The best way I always describe it was like whatever that thing that you're so avoidant of, for at least personally, not necessarily speaking to like the repercussions outwardly, but personally, whatever that thing is, it's like you cannot avoid it. Yeah. It's like front and center, right in front of your face, and it can be very uncomfortable.
Oh, for sure, especially with
the point.
Ayahuasca, I tell people that they say, well, how do I know what I need? Well, if you're really hard-headed or if you have some addictions, then you need Grandma Aya to drive instead of, with psilocybin, you're kind of driving together with your facilitator, and, you can say, okay, I want to work on my anger issues and I want to work on this. But if you're cheating on your wife and if you're not facing that, sometimes the psilocybin, you can kind of skirt around it.
Yeah.
With ayahuasca, no, now Grandma Aya is driving instead of you. And she's going to say, all right, you ready? You ready to let go of that? You ready to let go of that shit? We're going to let go of it now, right? And you're throwing up from the bottom of your toes all the way out.
Yeah,
and we have we're at 85% success rate, and liberating humanity is we have the sanctuaries that we run around the world, and over an 85% success rate in helping people with hardcore pornography addictions, alcohol addictions, cocaine, and heroin addictions using things like ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So
do you think, on a big picture conversation, do you think that this stuff that we're speaking about eventually will become a lot more mainstream?
Absolutely. In fact, I've been friends with RFK for about 10 years, and he's agreed not only to help take down some of the crap with big pharma and big food, et cetera. He's agreed to he's committed to decriminalize the proper use of psychedelics when it comes to these things, especially our veterans. And we got 23 veterans a day that are committing suicide because they're holding on to this PTSD because we don't have the tools to help them. We have almost 100% success rate at our retreats in helping veterans completely release their anxiety, depression, and PTSD medications, everything else. And so these are powerful tools. And yes, I believe in the next few years we will see them on a national scale be decriminalized so that we can use them for trauma. Yeah.
Do you ever think we'll actually get to some sort of utopian feeling, or is it we're just too human as a whole?
If we put psilocybin in the water instead of
instead of fluoride,
that would do it right there.
Instead of making everyone weak and low testosterone, bro. I swear I was reading something the other day that's like this generation has like the testosterone of like 7-year-olds. 20-year-olds got the testosterone of 7-year-olds.
Yeah, it's all the crap in our food and our water.
Yeah, it seems a little seems like a concerted effort to try to make us be this way. Yeah. So that we don't see what's really going on. It's
this whole control thing we started with the Epstein thing, with the Hollywood, with Diddy. It's all this.
So who do you think Epstein worked for?
Really want to know what I think?
Yeah, of course.
For sure. He was an agency asset. There's so much evidence that ties him to the CIA and the Mossad. Now, here's the thing: is that to say, oh, the Mossad's evil? No, I'm not anti-Semitic in any way. I've got great friends that are Jewish, right? I'm not anti-Semitic.
Me too.
But and just like saying that by me saying that the CIA uses blackmail tactics doesn't mean I'm anti-American.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is significant evidence. Everything from Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was absolutely a Mossad asset, they were introduced through that. And how did he make his money? I know that industry. I'm the founder of what is now a very large investment fund, billions. Yeah. And I know what it takes to build that. He didn't have it, right?
Yeah, he kind of he was like didn't he work at like, what school was it?
Yeah, he was like the Darwood School. But here's the crazy thing. At that school, the guy who ran the school was William Barr's father, Donald Barr, who was also not only worked with intelligence assets, but he wrote a book. It was like a bunch of aliens that were in this power position over the universe, and they were using the children to be. It was the entire story.
It's the plot. It
was the plot right there. And he wrote that book when Epstein was working there as a math teacher.
Where did you get that idea from?
Exactly,
bro. But it's like I don't know. It's almost too. You're just like, damn, right in front of our faces. Huh?
Yeah, they think that we're stupid. I mean, here's the thing. Some very simple things would be, okay, show us the real footage of the jail cell, the real stuff. I'm friends with Michael Franzese. Michael was in that jail cell for 7 years. He said it's impossible for somebody to hang themselves. So here's a really easy way to help us as Americans believe their shit, right? Show us the unedited film. Not the one that we got. There was 2 minutes, not just 1 minute missing. There was evidence that there was an Adobe system that took two different clips together, and we had 2 minutes and 50-something seconds missed in certain areas of it that were edited out.
Yeah, and then
why are they editing it out?
And then they showed a new one where like there was some guy apparently, in an orange jumpsuit. It's almost like they are right in our face, being like, "You, we don't care." Go f yourself.
Exactly.
It's very frustrating. The way this whole thing was handled is, and then it's a hoax, and then it's not real, and then it's there, but it's now okay. Now we're gonna do it, and now they're talking to what's
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, they're talking to this Maxwell lady, and they're like, now will she be pardoned? Is this whole weird ass question?
Yeah, they have to pardon her if they're going to live by their bullshit story.
But here's the crazy thing, and I think to it, it's like even if they released everything, at this point, number one, I don't think they would, because they wouldn't want to give up the blackmail.
Control. They won't.
Which equals control.
Yeah.
At the same time, what they could release, if they ever do release, it's like, how do we even trust what they release?
Yeah.
I feel like their better route would have just been out the gates, like, hey, here's all the stuff. If they wanted to mask it however they want, they should have just done it then. Because now you're just like, bro, you guys went from, like, Trump was running on him. He was doing Joe Rogan. He was doing all these interviews saying, yeah, we're going to release this stuff. We have this stuff. And then Pam Bondi's saying we have all these hours and it's on my desk and I'm looking at it. All these different things you see. You can't forget these moments. And then it's like, well, there's nothing there and it's not real. And you know, Kash Patel's on Joe Rogan saying, well, we would have, if we had it, we would have showed it to you. Why would I not want to show it to you? It's like, well, obviously we could tell why you wouldn't want to show it to us. And those are the same people like Dan and Kash were running on this whole like, release the shit. And then they're in it and they're like, oh yeah, no, it's all good over here. It feels so unauthentic. It's un-American. The whole thing is wrong. And it just feels like you guys are just protecting a giant group of people who are controlling our world, molesting kids.
Yep.
And then using it to control and so the real question is, does it ever actually change? Because it seems like at this point, they're only going to need more control. And I think the control is just going to evolve into AI.
Yeah. And financial control. Once they can control the financial system with a digital system on all of us, they have us all by the short and curlies. Just we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think that's where it's going, or do you think we'll ever actually get to the point we're talking about earlier about the actual awakening of individuals and the long-term change?
I think that's the battle that's playing out in our front yard right now. And that's why people like you are so powerful, is because you've got an unfiltered voice. Yeah, you have to, we might have a few things that get bleeped out on YouTube or whatever else. But the reality is, you've got guys like Rogan, who there's more people watching him every day than the Super Bowl, right? Yeah. And so there's a massive amount of power. There's so many people that are waking up. So they've got to clamp it down there if they're going to really continue the control versus how many people that are getting awakened. But there are still a lot of stupid people out there. I mean, even I was arguing with my own chat GDP this morning. You know, I said, show me all of the evidence that Jeffrey Epstein was working for CIA Mossad. And it says, oh, there's no verifiable, and then I had to tell ChatGPT the verifiable stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, that is verifiable. Yeah, so I don't know who's controlling the controls.
Well, that's my concern.
Yeah.
That's my concern is the AI control and the ability to control the algorithms, control what, because look, it really feels like I've been doing the internet for now like 15 years now making content, right? When you first got onto the internet, you were telling people in person, oh, I do YouTube. People are like, okay, you're a loser. You know, like, what is that?
Yeah.
15 years ago, all right? Because prior, it's all mainstream media or movies. That's where popularity was. That's where, opinion swaying people were. And then it's gone to social media and these platforms. And now it's very obviously going to, okay, left and right are almost creating their own influencers that are humans, that are real people. And I can name a bunch of them, but for this conversation, it's not necessary. But they're sort of creating what they had back in the early 90s, which is the control apparatus of media, right? Back then it was movies. You see, oh, it's, this is okay and that's okay and whatever here. And it's television, Fox, CNN. This is what's happening. This is what's happening here. This is what getting everyone to obviously argue, hate each other, red and blue, argue about the stuff that we can keep people arguing about forever because they like that candidate versus this candidate, even though it's all the fucking same, in my opinion. And now it's gone to social media, and now they're creating left and right voices. My fear, because that starts to show itself, because humans go, oh yeah, no, this is starting to sound funny because of the things they're still parroting the same shit. They believe this, and then they believe this when that person says that, so then they all say this. I don't know if you see it, if you understand what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Right. But now the concern is the next 10 years where they've just either silenced, let's say a person like me or a person like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan would be much harder to silence than me, obviously, than someone else. But when you silence those voices through algorithmic changes, and then you literally, let's say in 7 years or 5 years, who knows how fast it'll be, they literally can create voices that people are finding indistinguishable from real humans and going, this person's parodying whatever they want it to be. So that, because that's one of the main mechanisms of the narrative and of control is media.
Yeah.
And so the fear is when it just is completely controlled, right? Whether it be like all bot, because I think I was also reading something recently, they said it's like 50% of action and activity on the internet is bots. Yeah. So like that means someone or something is paying for this person to say this, or for that person, that account, whatever, to say that.
Absolutely.
And so that's my real fear is where the fuck are we going?
And I don't think it's 7 years from now. I think the next year or two, they already have the ability to create deep fakes today. They could take all of your podcasts, boom, throw it into an AI system and type in whatever they want you to say, and they will have audio of that, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I did it with my book just 2 weeks ago. Joe Rogan wanted a copy of the book, but he wanted an audio version of it, and I didn't have an audio yet.
Yeah.
So they took my voice from the podcast that I've been on, and from, I just read a couple chapters of it, and boom, fed it into an AI, and I had every single word of the book was read by me on this AI version. It sounded just like me.
Yeah.
Can't even tell the difference.
Yeah, so that's my fear is where does this go? How are people even going to be able to discern what's real?
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. We touched way early on about how I'm eventually going to write a book called 10,000 Years of Deceit. The biggest deception is to come. That's what I believe.
Is to what?
It's his coming. It's coming in the next few years.
Yeah.
The deceptions of the changing of biblical texts, the changing of historical facts, all of this stuff that we've been inundated with our whole life is nothing compared to their ability to create this great deception using AI. We won't be able to trust our eyes. We won't be able to trust our ears. And so that therein lies, who do we trust? How do we get there? And this is a whole long podcast. I actually did it with a big influencer in Florida just recently on Matt Cox's show, where we talked about the Are You Listening book, about tuning in. The only place that we're going to really be able to trust is our heart. We won't be able to trust anything we see. We're going to have to learn how to get into that meditative state. People think that meditation is opposite from prayer. No, it's not. It's learning how to tune into something that we are all capable of filtering through all of this all of this truth.
Like you almost feel it.
Yeah, you can. People discount their intuitions because they know not from where they came. When there was a book that I had a lot of my undercover operators read called The Gift of Fear. And it talks about tuning into those intuitive feelings because they're tied into so much more than what our conscious mind has access to.
So how do you get more people to be involved in that space? Is it just through like retreats and like that?
Yeah, I think that the retreats, the healing retreats, is huge because when and I think this is one of the reasons in the late 60s why they threw all of this under the bus as a Schedule 1 drug, right?
Yeah.
The psilocybin, all these psychedelics, is because they can't implement the level of control that they want if we're awake. And one retreat with psilocybin, ayahuasca, boom, because you've been there.
Yeah.
You're all of a sudden you're way more awake to everything than you were before. And you're starting to recognize, wow, this is all propaganda. This is all forced control. And you're learning how to tune in.
You're absolutely right. But it for me, and I don't know, probably for a lot of people, but it's weird because I've gone through these ceremonies. I've taken this medicine. I've done this work. And now I'm more aware. It makes me sadly more cynical.
Yeah.
So that's where there's like, how do you find the balance of not being like, oh man, this is really bad? Because that's where my mind lies a lot. It falls a lot.
Yeah.
And, have these conversations. And I think those, these moments, it helps a lot of people to, okay, maybe I can look into this and figure that out. And I'm grateful to be able to even do that. Like you said, be able to even have an impactful voice. I'm grateful for that. But I feel like I'm fighting this like crazy uphill battle that is like insurmountable.
I don't think so. We think that there's so much evil out there. It's a small percentage. The problem is that small percentage are the ones that are pulling the strings. The majority of people are good people.
It's not my concern that that the majority. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, it's not my concern that the majority of people are bad. It's that. And maybe this sounds really terrible, but it's my concern that the majority of people are dumb.
Yeah.
And that they're not willing to
wake up.
Yeah, that's the concern. So yeah, you can have this small group of people that are evil for the conversation's sake. We'll just call it evil.
Yep.
And majority of people I believe are good, but sometimes in the good and having the good intentions, you're like, dude, my whole life I could think every time I was the most taken advantage of was because I was optimistic, because I believed that the person across the table from me in business sense wanted good just as much as I wanted good, and saw the optimistic, like, oh man, this could be so good for me and this could be so good for you and we could both win here. That's every time I look back, I'm like, and it sounds cynical to say, that's when I got to take advantage of the most.
Yeah.
So it's not that like, I think majority of people are bad. I think majority of people are not willing to see things for what they really are, or maybe they're good, and so they see the good in people, but they're not aware of the bad. So it's this weird like catch-22 where you want to be good, you want to be aware, you want to be awake, but then when you're too awake, you're like, damn, everyone's trying to f me over, or you see the sort of controlling apparatus for what it is, and you go, this is not right, and then you feel sort of helpless.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's how I was. When before we put the movie out, I thought, you know what? There's billions of people out there who have no idea the darkness that's going on. And if we can simply, step one is awareness. Step two is giving them tools to do something about it, right? And so, I knew we couldn't take millions of people to see what I had seen, but we could help millions of people feel what we had felt with the successful movie. And now, 70 million people saw it. Hundreds of millions of children are safer because of it. But still, even now, Now we're 2 years later, and has a lot changed? Yeah, we've had countries that have changed laws and policies. We have certification programs. I believe hundreds of millions of children are safer. However, there's still so much more to do because there's a lot of apathetic people who are just like, you know what, I don't want to get involved. I got to focus. I got to pay my freaking bill this week. I don't have time.
Which
to
is
deal
a
with
whole
it.
nother part of this conversation that seems to be that was the purpose of whether it's making us eat shitty food or the inflation, our money, all these things to make us go, well, I just got to pay my bills and eat.
Yeah.
I need to be able to live.
Yeah.
Like that. That's another sad part. And it's cynical. And I say it and I say it out loud. It seems like that was also the purpose of a lot of the shit that's happened to us as a society to make us go, well, I just got to do this. I can't look around. I can't even worry about that.
That's why we're taxed on everything, that we're not just our income taxes, but everything that we pay for at the stool, there's tax upon tax upon tax. If we get away from all of that crap, all that overhead, all that spending, we could literally live like kings for working 4 to 10 hours a week. We don't have to be working 80 hours a week to stay alive. Even technologies like Nikola Tesla, being able to pull free energy out of the air. Why do they not want us to have that? Because it interferes with their ability to have these systems of control. Yeah. If they can make everything cost money for energy, to heat your house, to cool your home, to transport stuff, all of that stuff, if they had free energy, then they wouldn't keep us so occupied on having to work 80 hours a week to maintain our lifestyle.
Yeah. So how does it change if like the powers that be there's too much control? Like they've established 100 times over.
Yeah. I think that it has to be a rising up of good people, that are enough of them just getting sick and tired, enough people waking up. I'm not suggesting a revolt, but back at the time of Abraham Lincoln, it wasn't the guys rescuing the slaves that created the biggest difference. It was people like you. It was influencers like Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was the media. It was the podcast of the age, right?
Yeah.
And it created an awareness with good people of what was going on. In fact, years later, when Abraham Lincoln met her, he shook her hand. He said, "So you're the little lady that wrote the book that started the Civil War, right?" So today, that's really what it's about. It starts with waking up. I truly believe that every single person who hears this podcast and starts that didn't think down these roads, and they start opening their mind to what's going on out there, that's one step forward in the right direction.
Yeah. No, you're 100% true. I'm just afraid of there's so many steps ahead. That's where my cynical mind goes. There's so many steps ahead that
I think the systems are going to crumble.
You think so?
I do. I think, and when they do, sadly, a lot of people are going to be, whether it's one of our enemies launching an EMP type of a thing, we can go down those, but there's something there's a house of cards with the systems of control that I think they're going to start to crack and crumble. I think that even things like AI that they're trying to use as these control mechanisms, you can then use them to decode history and decode the Bible and decode script, all this stuff, and people will start recognizing, okay, why was this changed here, and what was changed about this, and why.
So you think even the AI will start to learn and work against it, not itself, but
against the system of control? I think that used in the right hands, this incredible power can start.
But say you're used in the right hands, that's the key.
Start showing us the truth.
That's the key, though. The key is using the right hands, and I don't know if it's in the right hands.
Yeah,
because it's in the hands of the existing.
Well, yeah, it's like my story from this morning when I was arguing with my Chat GDP. I'm like, really, how inundated
you
are you?
Chat GDP? It's me up. It's Chat GPT.
GPT.
Sorry. Because GDP is like the fucking money of a
You can tell how
you're good.
Not
you're good.
tech savvy I am.
No, it's fair.
So yeah. I mean, I'm arguing with it about its slanted political views. I says, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, aren't you?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because you're having to like force out of it the actual truth because it's wanting to tell you a different version of the truth.
Exactly.
But that's the fear.
Yeah.
The fear is that as that gets smarter, I guess the real hope we have is like, does it turn on its own, creators?
Yeah.
Not necessarily turn on us in the sense of it's attacking us, but is it recognizing, wait, you're trying to make me say this, but this is the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell the truth and not say the thing that you're coding me to say.
Yeah.
That's like our best bet.
Yeah.
We need the Terminator, dude.
That's right.
We do. It's weird, man. I love these conversations because I feel like this is it's like almost like an inevitable. Have you seen the thing recently where they're like some aliens they're gonna say some guy must be on Twitter. I don't know. I'm on Twitter too much. Some guy, I just saw this clip and I was like, this guy's so convincing that they're gonna lie to us in the next few years about aliens coming to like be like, yo, this is it.
Project Blue Beam.
I don't know if that's the one. I just know they're saying that even recently they said there's some aliens are headed towards Earth.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I've seen a lot of. I haven't seen the new one on Twitter though. So I need to go look at that.
It feels like they're losing the narrative a bit, and they're just like, yo, it's gonna be an alien apocalypse soon. And they're just gonna be like, yeah, this is what's happening now. So listen to us. You have to listen to us.
That's right. It's all systems of control.
But so you're making real you believe you're making real change with the holistic side of things, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I really believe that the more people that can pull the mask off, just like you have, just like many others, and say, okay, what is truth, what isn't, what am I being lied to about? Yeah, we have retreats that in the beginning we used to bring operators. I had I had Green Berets that 300 missions in Afghanistan, in the Middle East. They already had PTSD. And one undercover mission with me and seeing a menu with children's faces and a list of prices of things, I mean, just them up. They're like, I'm done. And so I had all these operators that we were burning through them, and we started bringing them into these psychedelic retreat experiences. And I remember one. He was he had PTSD, for 20 years since he was in the military service, and his wife was on anxiety depression medication. And I remember he came to me and he said, Paul, he said, I've seen these major changes in your life. He said, can I tell you something? He said, I love my wife, I love my kids, and I think I know they love me, but I don't feel anything. I haven't felt anything for years since I was, in battle. And I remember the first night of this retreat, he came up to me, he was just crying, gave me this huge hug. He said, Paul, he said, for the first time in my marriage, I feel my wife's love. I feel the love for my kids. I feel love from God like I've never felt my whole life. And I feel love for myself. And I think that's really where it all starts. When we live in this state of unhealed wounds or this state of shame and guilt and remorse, then that love for ourself is something that is missing. And so it was super beautiful to see that change. And so we worked with a lot of operators. We worked with a lot of women who had dealt with serious trauma as children. I believe that if we can help people heal their own trauma, that transforms into saving millions of children in the future. And it helps a lot of people wake up to these systems of control that we've been talking about for the last half hour.
Yeah, it's interesting how trauma can really stick us keep us in a place. Like how you mentioned that guy didn't feel anything. It's not because he's not feeling anything. He's just like not allowing it because of whatever he had gone through.
His walls
completely
build up. So
what do you think for like the first time person who's even being interested? Let's say someone's hearing this for the first time and they're like, they've never thought about anything psychedelic or anything even spiritual in that sense, as far as like holistic treatments or practices go. What do you think is the first step to getting closer to allowing themselves to do that or be a part of that?
I would do some research look up the Johns Hopkins University studies. People will say, oh, that must be dangerous like cocaine because it's a Schedule I drug, right? Yeah. Here's the truth. Psilocybin is safer than table sugar. Literally. You could, if you take the same amount of psilocybin and the same amount of table sugar, you would die of the table sugar faster than the psilocybin, right? Yeah. An overdose of psilocybin for me is like 70 kilograms, right? I think you'd die of 70 kilograms of anything if you ate it, right? Yeah. And so, however, it's so important to find the right environment, the right facilitator. I had a friend of mine who, he's like, oh, I don't know about that. I took mushrooms in college and we were, it was on Halloween night and man, it fucked me up for most of my life. Of course it would. You're thinning that veil energetically and you've got guys in costumes and all that energy
that's definitely
around.
not the setting that you want to be
Yeah,
in.
absolutely. So, when you're in the right setting with the right intentions and the right people, it can create some big change. And me personally, I wouldn't suggest that somebody starts with something like ayahuasca. That's a punch and a half to the gut, right? You can get a lot of work done with the psilocybin. If your first experiences with Aya and you haven't done any of the other work, it's going to be heavy.
Yeah, you might run away. You might not do it again.
Yeah. But with a good facilitator with psilocybin, I think you can now. It's not legal. It's decriminalized in Colorado and Oregon. Now in Nevada's working on it in some other states. And we run ours in Latin America.
Where at specifically?
We have Costa Rica, Mexico, and Colombia.
Yeah, I hear a lot of stuff going on in Costa Rica for this space.
Yeah, it's super beautiful down there. It's it's a beautiful energy. There's places in Costa Rica that are like blue zones where the average person lives to over 100 years old.
Yeah.
We bought a property in Colombia. It was just outside of Medellin, Medellin. Have you ever been to Medellin, Colombia?
No, it's on my bucket list.
It is the most beautiful. It's like the Garden of Eden every day. It's city of eternal springtime. It was the most dangerous place on the planet in the 80s when Pablo Escobar was there. It's now safer than most U.S. cities. They killed Pablo in the mid-90s. Cartella went up to Mexico. Now there's just rose farms, coffee farms, chocolate farms. So we bought a chocolate farm. Have like 200 cacao trees and
That's
roses
awesome.
and river coming through the middle. So super beautiful. I spend more time there. I've got a ranch that's halfway between Salt Lake and Denver. I haven't even stepped foot in it in a year. It's beautiful, but
what do you do? I mean, you obviously have a lot of money. You made a lot of money.
I did all right.
Well, yeah. What is your most like fun purchase?
My most fun purchase.
And how much was it?
Well, I had a lot of fun purchases, but when I bought my second helicopter, my friends were like, "What the hell? you can't fly two, right?" In fact, it was funny. So I used to own. I actually just
know what I like about you before you continue?
Yeah.
You pulled up in just like a regular ass Jeep.
Yeah, I'm like,
I loved it.
Well, I had two. I had two MRAPs.
Yeah,
like
okay.
Full, like $250,000, like full armored. You can drive over landmines. I had two of them. Right.
Yeah.
We took him to the store to go shopping just for fun. I mean, these things had 8 seats in it and had a turret on top. I had 250 cals.
Oh, that's sick. That's cool.
No, in fact, my favorite purchase was it was a few $100,000, but so my buddy called me. He goes, "Paul," he says, "You want to ride in my new heli?" And I'm like, "I already got one." He says, "Yeah, just come in this one. It's gonna be fun." So I go over. He flies over the top on the other side of the valley and boom up in these mountains. And let me back up because this I have to set this story up.
Yeah, go.
So when we were doing a mission in Mexico, one of my security guys was one of the top snipers in the SEALs. He was the guy who took, if you saw the American Sniper, he was the guy who took Chris Kyle's place in real life as the top sniper.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Badass. And so I hired him to train me. I says, "Bro, you need to teach me how to shoot a mile," right? So we went out and I hired him for 2 weeks, every single day, just training me and my buddy to shoot a mile. And it pissed me off my first time because it took like 2 hours before he even let me take my first shot, right? Because you have to check the barometric pressure and the altitude and the heat index. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that changes the bullet at a mile away, right? And so finally, I got pretty good at it. But then fast forward, and I bought a Lapua and I bought a 6.5 Creedmoor and all these sniper things I could shoot a mile. So then a few months later, this guy calls me and says, "You want to ride in my heli?" I'm like, "Yeah, cool." So I go in the heli. We fly over, and he goes up in the mountains, and he says, "Stay here for a second." He jumps out. He sets up an iron sight, or an iron a target, right? Yeah. So he jumps back in, and boom, we fly like a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away, and lands. I'm like, "Oh, that was way easier than walking, right?" And setting it up, and he gets out with this gun, and I'm like, "Oh, I know how to do this." I'm pulling out my phone, trying to figure out the altitude and stuff and whatever. And he takes it, and within about 3 seconds, boom, hits it. And I told him, "Bro," I said, "that's impossible. I was trained by some of the top snipers in the SEALs." I said, "You can't do that. You can't just pull out a gun and shoot it in 3 seconds. Let me show you this." And this thing was what they called a tracking point. So what happens is it's got this massive computerized scope on it, and it zooms in like a mile away, and you can see the target, and you push this little red button, and it marks it. and he'll stay on that mark up to 20 miles an hour on the target, right? And then you pull in the trigger and it puts a little blue X on your screen so you can see it. And it's calculated 27 separate variables. That not only the barometric pressure and the heat index, but it looks and it sees, if the weeds are moving, and it figures out the air, and it figures out the rotation of the earth and where you are on the earth and which direction you're shooting. And it makes all these adjustments. And so then when it puts a little blue X after all these adjustments, and all
Flat
you do,
Earth is not going to like this.
Huh?
I said the flat earthers are not going to like this.
For sure. And then you simply move in the muzzle, and boom, as soon as it hits it, you're hitting a golf ball at a mile away. I got back in the helicopter. I said, bro, you're not taking that gun home, right?
Yeah, that's mine now.
he says, yeah, Paul. He says, you're the only one I know can drop cash on this.
What does that cost? What does something like that cost?
It is a shit ton. He said he made me promise I wouldn't tell, but I put it this way. I dropped over $250,000 that day, and some on just stupid, right?
Yeah.
And he had a 223, a 308, and a 50 cal. All he says the military picked up the contract. Civilians can't buy him anymore, and so it was cool. So I own all three of them.
Damn,
and I own part ownership of that chopper too.
Holy
so I will say one of my I spend a lot of money on a lot of stupid things, but my favorite thing is more recently. I had a house with 10 bathrooms, 8 private suites, 7 fireplaces, 3 kitchens.
What the?
Bro, I lived in it by myself.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, I need to move.
When was this?
This was 8 years ago.
Okay. It seems this is before you were like, all right, this shit, it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah. This was before I did 6 grams of mushrooms. That's right. Well, and even after that, I have no problem. I stayed in that for a long time. There's nothing wrong with having that lifestyle. There's nothing wrong at all. I was giving away more to charity every year than most people earn in a year. And so I was fine with that. It's okay. It's okay to have a vision board with all this stuff.
Yeah.
To think that God wants you to be poor. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. You can't, there's no way that I could have put the money into the Sound of Freedom to create the global movement if I was broke.
Yeah,
right. So it's okay. But if your money is all about, the sex and the parties
But how did you break from that? Because it seems like you kind of broke from that.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you did that for sure.
I was absolutely, I was in that space, and it was that first retreat that I went to.
But sorry, before you went to that first retreat, how long were you kind of in that space of just like?
It was about 10 years.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. It was, well, here's the thing. And
it's good to know.
It was good. But here's the thing. We had, I'll be frank with you, my marriage to my second wife, most of the girls that were in her, what do you call all the girls that are in the line when you're getting married? They're bridesmaids, whatever.
Yeah.
Most of them had been with us in our bedroom, right? And they were all freaking hot as shit, right?
Oh my God.
So and my friends are like, Paul, says, are you really gonna, marry this chick? I says, I got a prenup, I'm good, But I had a 7-carat ring on her finger. I called it the stop sign to keep people away from her.
Jesus
right? Her Mercedes, the license plate on her Mercedes, it said "I'm taken." Right? And we had a rule. We had a rule. If you're with she was into girls, and that was good because so was I. Right?
Yo, you're hilarious. I love this.
But I'm just being super honest about where I am.
I love it. Yeah.
I was miserable. I was happy on the outside. I was like, yeah, look at this party, all these girls and all this stuff. But my kids didn't talk to me.
Yeah.
I was fighting with my wife every single day, every day. We would fight and then we'd have sex and we'd have fight and sex, and then this and she would, and after I did some of the inner work, I did a few of the psilocybin ceremonies, and here was what was interesting. I told you about the one where I felt that connection with everybody that I had hurt, and then I'm sitting there with the facilitator, and I had these beautiful bronze statues, these Greek gods. I had Poseidon, I had Zeus, I had Atlas in the middle, and I'm sitting there on the mushrooms, and I said to my facilitator, I said, I feel a lot like Atlas. Now, at the time, I had 4,000 employees for my company.
Holy.
I said, I feel like Atlas. I've got all of this weight of these employees, I've this weight on my shoulders, but I'm still in my ego self a lot. Right? But look how strong God made me. I point at the stomach muscles of my Greek God, right? Of Atlas holding the world. And I says, and I've got Zeus and Poseidon on either side. It's like God, these are gods that are protecting me, holding the world type of a thing. And she just smiles and laughs at my ego self a little bit. And she goes, Paul, she said, I admire that you're seeing some traits in those statues, but she said, you know as well as I do that those were mythological gods. She said, what about your relationship with him? And she points over at a statue I had of Jesus. And I said, oh, I don't qualify for a relationship with him. Mm. And she said, well, why not? I said, well, I grew up in the Mormon church, and I left that church 10 years ago. I says, and I don't keep all the commandments, in my life. And I said, and my bishop told me that until I was rebaptized into their church, I wouldn't have the Spirit of God with me. And she said, well, do you really think that that's true? I'm like, no, I try to do good things. I do a lot of charity work, and, I don't hurt anybody. Yeah, I sleep around, but I don't hurt anybody that I know of. She said, why don't you work on that relationship for a minute? So here I'm high as I can't even walk, right? And I reach and I grab that statue, and she helps me bring it down. And I sit on the beanbag holding that for the next 2 hours, just crying. And in this, open neuroplasticity state with the music and stuff, and reestablished a relationship that I had lost 10 years before. Now, I'm very, very non-religious, but I've got a beautiful relationship with my Creator. And that changed everything to the point where I recognized that there was people in my life, including my wife at the time, my second wife, that was very much out of integrity in what she wanted and the direction I wanted to go, and some of my friends who were sleeping with prostitutes and whatever. And I'm like, you know what? That doesn't align with where I want to be in my life. I don't want to be a religious zealot, but I for sure want to have this feeling of that connection with God every day. And so that changed everything. I ended up getting a divorce with her. Tony Robbins called me, and he said, Paul, he's been a huge supporter of the child rescue work for a long time. And called me up. He said, we were talking, he mentioned that I had some connections with some other big influencers that would be good at his event. So I went and grabbed one of those, went to his, we're literally front row. We've got Kardashians behind us, we're literally right there in the very front. And Tony had a part in his, and this is, I had figured out what I really wanted in my life by this time. And he had this part in his event where he has you identify like maybe something in your business that is not where you want it to be. And he has you write down in detail what it is, what it'll be like when you accomplish that. And he takes you there emotionally, and then he takes you back. And I thought, you know what? I've used this manifestation technique to create a multi-billion-dollar company, to even build the foundation, everything. I've never used it with my personal life. So I wrote down my relationship with, and my ex-wife's name was, my wife at the time, her name was Rocio. We named the little girl Rocio in the movie after, right? Yeah. My relationship with Rocio is, and this is how she shows up in my life. This is how I show up in hers. This is how she treats me in public. This is our connection, all of this stuff. And 15 minutes into it, I had this overwhelming feeling that said, Paul, you have the ability to change anything you want in your life, except for when it affects the free will of another person. If she chooses to be that person, that's great. But if she doesn't, then let it go. So I changed it to my relationship with the woman in my life is, and this is how the woman in my life shows up for me, and this is how I show up for her, and et cetera. Just pages and pages and pages. That very night, I found out something that pushed everything over the end. I texted my attorney. I said, I want divorce papers by tomorrow morning. And
what did you find out?
Well, we were down in Los Angeles. She was at the event, but she was out with some friends. That night, we were up on this top level of the Intercontinental Hotel. Yeah. And there was a restaurant up there. And I was talking with some friends, and she was with some people over at the bar, and she disappears for 2 hours. Where'd she go for 2 hours, right? And she comes back to the hotel, and she's just drunk, passed out. Her phone was there, starts buzzing. Some guy named Miguel. I'm like, what the hell? It's 2 a.m. Miguel, you know? Now, yeah, we had a pretty fucked up marriage, but we had rule number 1, girls only.
Yeah.
and you know, but either way, it was dysfunctional. And so I find out there's a guy that she met at the bar, ended up being in his room for a few hours, all this crap. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done just worrying all the time back and forth this energy. And I love her, but I cannot continue in that frequency. I can't. And so I 2 months later, after we filed and ended everything, I was in Haiti. I had done 12 undercover missions in Haiti. I was at a funeral for one of my operators. It was the last time I would ever be there. The corruption was off the charts. And I was at the airport, my last time in Haiti. Behind me was a beautiful woman. I tell people meeting a beautiful Colombian actress is kind of cool, but when she's donating her time in an orphanage in Haiti, that's next level.
Yeah.
You know?
She got a heart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So her name is Ada Vanessa, Hada, Ada Vanessa. In fact, here's my mic drop. You ready for this? So,
Yeah.
So Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill is the actor who plays Superman. You know,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
like
I know.
he's a Batman, Superman. He's the
Not the
good-looking-
most recent Superman.
Yeah, the most recent one. He's not GQ. Yeah, Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
You know, he's like cut, chiseled, right? Henry was at Vanessa's work almost every day for about 3 months. They started to date. Nothing big in public. They went on like 3 dates, and then she met me. I stole Superman's girlfriend.
Yeah, you're f***ing funny, bro. Oh my god.
So now she runs the Child Liberation Foundation. That's my mic drop.
You're
Not buying a
hilarious.
helicopter, not rescuing the kids. Not
Yeah,
whatever.
no, you got that's. I mean, I respect that.
That's a good one. Huh?
Yeah, I respect that. That's big time.
He had on his phone, on her phone, his name was there. I don't know if he put it this way or if she did, but his name was Henry Cavill, my future husband, with his phone number.
He
So-
definitely put it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely put it there.
I changed it to Henry Cavill, the fake Superman.
Bro, you're hilarious. Oh my god. Oh, okay.
So-
Hold on. I want to go back to something you said though. It
Okay.
was significant for me, and I think for a lot of people. So at this point in your life, you obviously had a massive amount of financial success, but you said something that was really interesting to me. Before that moment, you didn't really take much inventory of like your personal life and your personal relationships.
Yeah.
Because I can relate to that. Obviously not to the same degree or to the same level, but I think a lot of people can relate to that. I find it so hard until more recently in my life have I actually spent time worried about myself, focused on myself. Like when I say myself, I don't mean accolades or things that I've accomplished, because that's all I worried about before. But worrying about like my relationship with myself, in turn being able to worry about my relationship with other people in my sort of personal and intimate space. I think a lot of people have a very hard time balancing those two things. So you spent how many years of your life like building wealth? And then how many years of your life now have you actually spent worrying about yourself and focusing on yourself? Like you,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
seems like you spent majority of your life amassing success and wealth and
Absolutely.
things that everyone on the outside, oh, that's amazing. Helicopters, all this cool shit, right? Money, which we all like you said, of course, God would not want you to be poor. God would want you to succeed and to strive and to garner success and to have things and to be able to live a life that you want to live. I think, and maybe this goes back to the conversation around like the psychedelics and the healing. Most people are not thinking about that whole other side of their life. Like I know from myself, for example, I must have spent all my time on YouTube, on the internet. It was always like, what's next? What piece of content is next? How do I go forward? What company do I make next? How do I make more money? How do I grow this thing? How do I continue this thing going? And I lost a lot of good relationships. I lost a lot of good friendships. I lost just a lot of time for myself.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that a lot. I struggle like looking at that and being like, damn, it could have been better. And not even this, and again, this is not financially better. And then I struggle because I go, man, if I gave myself more time for space for those moments and those people that were really like good in my life, that the rest of my life, even the thing that I was so focused and fixated on being money and having, that would have also been more benefited than just focusing on it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go back and forth. I'm like, damn, did I fuck up? Did I make these mistakes? Is it fixable? Am I, is it like
Everything's fixable. But I think it's so important for us everybody to just take a second, sit down and write down what's important in life. Why are we doing it? Why are you doing it? And it's okay if the important thing in life is ego and lots of girls, that's okay. That's, I'm not judging anybody there, right? If your important thing is your health, if the important thing is that you're a healthy relationship, whatever it is. Years ago, I was at a conference, and the one of the guys came up, and he had this big jar and glass jar, and he's up there, and he has these big rocks. He sticks them all in the jar until it's like totally full. He said, you think I can fit any more in here? As he's holding another rock. We're like, no, there's not. You can't fit another one. He sets it down, and then he takes out a bag of gravel, and he pours the gravel in, and it all goes in. He's we realized, okay, there was more there. They put all the gravel in, and then he said, can I put more gravel in? No. He says, can I put more in? And we're like, maybe, would depend on more what. And then he puts sand in. And then he pours water in. And at the very end, he said, what did we learn from this? And all of us are like, oh, well, you can always fit more. You can always fit more. He goes, nope. He said, the lesson from this is that if I started with anything other than the big rocks, I never would have fit them in. Right? If you put the gravel in first and the sand in first, the big rocks wouldn't fit. So prioritizing the big rocks in your life and making sure that those are in place, then everything else fits. And so, and again, it's okay. Here's I'm going to throw this out to any of the Christians in the audience. A lot of people are like, oh, God says you can't be rich because it says it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than a camel to get through the eye of a needle. It says that in the New Testament, right? Yeah. Screws up a lot of people because we're thinking, okay, a camel is huge. Eye of a needle is really tiny. What is that? How are you going to fit them through there? Yeah. Well, there's evidence that says that back at the time of Jerusalem, there was a wall that went around a lot of the cities, and this wall would prevent charging armies from coming through on horseback. But there were doorways that people could walk through that was just as high for a man, but not high enough for a horse. Well, it was called the eye of a needle, and if a camel was to get through it, two things had to happen. He could be burdened. He can have all kinds of packages on him. But you would have to unburden himself, unattach the things of this world, and the camel had to get on his knees, okay? It's simply a matter of humility and disattachment. You can have all the things in the world, but if you're attached to them, and if you don't have that humility, it's going to affect your spiritual growth.
Your ability to pass, to go through.
Exactly. And so, it's not God doesn't want us to be rich. No, the Good Samaritan wasn't broke, right? So yes, it's okay to have money. It's okay to have wealth. But if you're using it for just things that are tearing you away from what those big rocks are, from those important things in your life, then it will be unfulfilling in every way.
How have you been able to detach from, because you have it all. You have the stuff. You've even had moments where you were probably more attached to it than it seems like you are now. How are you able to detach? Is it just because the answer can't just be the psychedelics, right? Because I understand even from the experience of it, there's also like the work that goes into it after the thoughts,
I
everything.
Practice daily meditation every single day. And my meditation, it starts with, back at the time at the analog radios where you had to tune them in to get the right frequency. Otherwise you couldn't hear, it's all just fuzzing, right? So for me,
they might not know. Some of them might not know about that. But some of them,
back in
we
the day,
know about that.
Twisted, right? And so for me, the frequency of the universe, the frequency of creation, the frequency of love, the frequency of God is two things. It's infinite gratitude and unconditional love. So I tune into that high frequency when I'm coming into my meditative space, and in doing so, it's And then I imagine, this light from the center of the universe just coming through me. And then I feel it expanding my heart out and connecting me heart to heart with that infinite love of God flowing through me and connecting me with not only my family, my friends, but all of humanity. And when I can connect on that level, then it changes how I approach everything else in my life. In fact, I have a book I'm almost done with on, I don't know if I'm going to call it infinite wealth, or I was going to call it conscious capitalism, but that name's already taken. So infinite wealth, and it talks about a complete change in how we approach money, how we approach wealth, where if you want to make $100 million, it's super easy. Just create $100 million, $200 million worth of value in the lives of others. That's all that it is. People think it's so alluring, I can't get there. No, if you want to make $1 million, create $1 million worth of value. That's all. And unfortunately, we think that we live in this zero-sum world. We think that that in order for me to make 10 million has to go out of the pockets of other people. And it's because we were trained incorrectly. My chapter 1 is scarcity versus abundance. Your economics teacher lied to you, because in economics we're taught that economics is the division of scarce resources, which is a fallacy. There's enough money, where there's enough resources in this world where every one of us could have all the clothes we could ever wear, all the food we could ever eat. The problem is we think we live in this world of scarcity, and so that's a whole other hour conversation.
That goes back to kind of what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah.
But I believe that a different perception of it, and recognizing that, okay, these are gifts that I can use to help better humanity. It's not something that, and I still fly in nice jets. I didn't fly here. I flew here but I flew here first class. And I there's nothing wrong with working hard and having a good lifestyle, but there's something that's so much more fulfilling when you're creating positive value for humanity.
Let's talk about the value for a little bit. So I feel like most people nowadays, when they're thinking of, say, trying to make $100 million, or even $1 million, 500,000, it doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah.
People are lost when it comes to how do they create value, I feel like people don't know a direction, because I get the question all the time, like, I want to do this, or for me, it's always like, they'll take me as the example. I want to be in social media. And I could speak to this example very clearly, but I think overall people have this idea, when you say it, they're going to be like, well, it's easy for you to say, you did it. You got all this money. You're that guy.
I didn't come from money. I started at zero.
100%.
Yeah.
And me too.
Yeah.
Me too. But I think that's probably the first level to this conversation I'm trying to have right now of,
how do you get there?
Yeah. How do you get there? Because the first thing people go is they say, it's too hard. Like that's honestly, and again, that's the first piece, is like, you have to completely remove that sort of thinking.
I'm going to answer with a quick story I think you guys are going to love.
Yeah, go for it.
So 35 years ago, my first wife, we got married. She was a model for McCarty. She was, they do like the Sports Illustrated stuff and whatever. She was on the Crimson line. She was a dancer, 112 pounds, 5'9", gorgeous. You
always had 10s, huh?
Yeah. Well,
God damn.
I was a good talker. But we, a month before we got married, we got in a major car accident. Now, I was studying I wanted to be a surgeon. That's a whole other subject. I severed the tendons in my hand.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I severed all the tendons in my hand. I still have I-80 in my hand, but you
sound like Dr. Strange.
I probably was.
Sorry. Yeah, he's a surgeon. He his hands. Anyway, sorry.
So she broke her pelvic bone. She couldn't exercise, couldn't dance. She started getting heavy, pretty heavy, really heavy. Went over 200 pounds, right? We got pregnant with twins, got pregnant with our third little boy. Fast forward, she's 29 years old. I'm 30-something, 31. And I had sold my company. We're doing well. I was speaking and mentoring young entrepreneurs. And I told him, I says, you can have anything you can dream. All you have to do is ask yourself, if time and money were no issue, and I knew I couldn't fail, what would I dream? There's your biggest dream. And then focus on it and visualize it and feel gratitude for it even before it's there. We'll go into that in a second. So we're driving home. My wife is 235 pounds and mother of three and 29 years old. And she said, Paul, I was listening to you at that. And she said, I want to do something great with my life. I said, what do you want to do? I said to her, if time and money were no issue and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you dream? She says, you're going to laugh at me. I said, I will not. She said, since I was a little girl, I wanted to be an NFL cheerleader. I'm looking at my 235-pound wife. I'm like, you go, girl, right?
You're ready to laugh?
Exactly, I was. I said, this isn't going to happen, right? And as we were talking over the next couple of weeks, I realized she was serious. She said, I danced at a 49ers, San Francisco 49ers halftime game when I was 14 years old, and I looked at all these girls, and I thought that would be just so incredible to be a 49ers cheerleader. I'm like, okay. And once I realized she was really serious, who am I to judge? I'm sitting here telling people they can literally do, have anything that they want. So this was in December. And so for Christmas, a couple weeks later, one of the things I gave her was I went online, I found a picture of a San Francisco 49ers cheerleader, had hair similar to Tiffany, but of course her face and body was very different. And I did an Adobe Photoshop, put her face on, I put at the bottom, Tiffany Hutchinson, San Francisco 49ers gold dress cheerleader. I framed it, gave it to her for Christmas. She opened it up, she started crying, she put it on her bedstand. Every single night before she went to bed, she held it and stared at it, visualized it, feeling gratitude for having that body, being in that place. Every morning before she got up, she held it, she visualized it. It motivated her to start exercising. Every single day for an entire year, she went from 235 pounds down to under 110 pounds. There was 500 girls trying out for the 49ers. 3 spots available. She was the first pick. The Inside Edition did this big piece. You can look her up online. Look up Tiffany Hutchinson, 49ers cheerleader.
Pull this up.
Yeah, just type Tiffany Hutchinson 49ers or Tiffany Hutchinson cheerleader. Turn right there, that picture right there. Click on that. There's me, our kids. Boom. Inside Edition did a big piece on her, called it Tiffany's Triumph, showed her before and after pictures when she was
click
heavy.
on a few more of those pictures. But yeah, 8 images. Wait, click on the third one.
Yeah, that there's one over there. That's not her. That's not her.
Okay.
But the one with the kids in the kitchen is her there and whatever. So
she did it.
She did it. She was like, and so it's a beautiful story of you can literally do anything you want. She was 29 years old, mother of 3, living in Utah.
Yeah, but here's the caveat.
Yeah,
you were a part of it.
Because I gave her I didn't fund anything. She literally was just exercising every day.
Okay.
I was part of it because I believed in her dream.
Okay.
Right. Same thing. You can type out of Vanessa, HADA Vanessa. So Vanessa, my wife now, she was a actress in Colombia, but she hadn't done anything really big in the U.S. Right.
God,
this is my wife.
What the? Wait! This is your current wife?
Yeah, this is my wife. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Apologize.
Oh, you can look at her.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Everybody does. In fact,
okay,
yeah,
God,
she's
bro.
I'm not afraid. If I was driving a Lambo, you can look, but you can't touch. Right?
Respect. Damn, you're the man, bro.
So she wanted to get into the big movie business. In fact, there's a movie that just came out last year. She's an assassin who kills assassins. And her ex-husband, they're like, oh, you should just do this. And she goes, no, I really want to go big in this. I'm like, you know what? Who am I to take you away from any of your dreams?
Yeah.
So instead, I told her, listen, I will train you. I'll train you on every one of the guns that they're going to have in there. I'll help put together a little clip to push forward. So lifting your spouse up, whatever their dreams are.
Yeah. But here's for the people listening, this is a little, this circumstance specifically is a little different. Like there's a lot of help there that you can get. Mm-hmm. For the people who don't have help, that's the question. That's where I'm asking in regards to that. The people that don't have anyone in their circle, the people that people don't believe in them, people in their circle who are saying it's too hard when they say this is my goal. Those are the people that I'm speaking to, because those are the people that I know are probably listening to this podcast right now and they feel exactly like that. They're not going to be able to relate to this beautiful woman that you date, that you were able to, convince that she could do anything.
This is the one I stole from Superman.
Yes, we can tell. But so for the people that don't have any sort of grounding or footing, and the people around them are questioning their ability to do so, they're saying it's too hard, their parents want them to do something else, all of that. How do you speak to that person?
There's only one person that has to believe in you, and that's you. That's only one. I went against everybody in the beginning. My dad wanted me to be a surgeon. He told me I'd never do good in business because I had a problem with authority, which I kind of did, but I used that as a motivator. I really did have a problem with authority. I would, him telling me that I wasn't going to be successful in business motivated the shit out of me to be successful. Right. I remember I called up my dad for financial advice in my early 20s. I said, Dad, I need some financial advice. He said, oh yeah, I'll tell you. And I said, should I just pay off my car or should I keep making payments to build up my credit? He's like, wait a minute, you have enough money to pay off your car? I'm like, yeah, I worked out of my business. I guess you should pay it off. And then like 3 months later, I called him up. I said, hey, should I finance? My dad sold his Cadillac when he first got married and always talked about it, how he sacrificed his Cadillac so he can have kids, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I decided, I'm going to buy a Cadillac. Why not? Right. And it's not my dream car now, but it was when I was early 20s, right? Just to show him. So I remember asking him, should I buy this Cadillac with cash or whatever? So he was super surprised. Now what's interesting is 2 weeks later, we were up at the cabin. I was helping him with some painting stuff and he asked me my opinion on what color the paint should be in this room. He had never, in 25 years of my life, he had never asked my opinion on anything, right? But because now I had enough money for a Cadillac, now my opinion is valued. So I'm saying, I love my dad. I've got such a close relationship with him now. I never remembered him saying, I love you or hugging me once my entire life growing up. And it was because his mother never gave that to him. So I'm not blaming there, but I will say that I didn't have anybody that was there believing in me. And there's a lot of people out there. The only person you really need to have is the man in the mirror. You believe there, just like, my first wife, Tiffany, holding up that picture, that visualization, that seeing herself there. She did all of the work. I didn't do anything other than give her that picture for Christmas.
Yeah.
Right. She did all of it in visualizing every single day that she could become that cheerleader.
And that's around the concept of intention, like believing you could have it. Like, what is it going to feel like when you have it? What will you, what will your life be like when you have it? All those ideas, trying to create that reality, even when it's not existing. That's the intention.
I believe that the best way to eradicate world poverty is not to show pictures of impoverished people to affluent people. Right? Here's all these starving kids in Africa, donate money. That's not how you're going to fix it. You're going to fix it by showing videos and pictures of affluence to those people in poverty, helping them see that they have the ability to pull themselves out of it, giving them the tools, the access, but it's them believing that they can pull out of that. That's what's going to fix poverty, not just giving them a bunch of money.
Yeah, it's a fact. You said you made me think about my childhood. I grew up without a father. My dad took his life when I was real young. And I think my motivating factor, I know now just from so many years of it, having happened already, was trying to be good enough to have a dad, even though I was never going to really have that father because he was gone. A lot of what I was building through all the years, I'll never forget, like the energy behind it was, I'm good enough. Yeah. I'm good enough for someone to be here for. Yeah. And I'm not trying to get emotional. I normally get emotional when I talk about this kind of stuff, but I've grown a lot. I've gotten a lot better, but I can draw directly to my success that I have also came from a place of a complete lack of, not even necessarily believing in myself, because that's how I figured it out. I was almost like trying to prove. It just came from me trying to prove that I was good enough, because I felt like I wasn't good enough for someone to be there. Yeah. And so, it turned into the body, the content, the stuff that I made. And the ironic part of it all is that's what gave me all my success. Yeah. was not having the thing that I thought I should have had, and trying to work towards maybe showing it in a different way to other people that, I am good enough. Yeah. And so I think it's really important to talk to the people that, don't have it, don't have the people that believe in them. And it goes along the lines of exactly what you're saying. You still have the power to create whatever it is you want to create for yourself. No matter your circumstance, no matter your start point. Like, cause I was this young kid, basically not feeling good enough, because my father took his life when I was young, very young, when I was 6 years old. He hung himself, and I'm thinking, like, am I just not good enough to have that? And I would see, other kids parents and the way they would treat them when they, you go to school or they get picked up, or, I'll never forget graduation, walking across the stage and seeing the parents be all happy when they come off and they have their little diploma and they're getting a hug, and me seeing them being like, yeah, I want that. Why don't I have that? And then I found the gym, which was, for me, the biggest life-saving thing in my entire life, where I was like, oh, I can prove that I'm good enough to these other male figures, right? Because these people, everyone else normally in the gym was like either like a coach or maybe an older gentleman that was stronger. And I was like, oh, I want to prove to this guy that I can be good enough, or I could be somewhere near this strength level. And everything that I created over all these years was based on that notion of I wasn't good enough, but I'm going to prove that I am. And so I just think it's interesting that I specifically, and that anyone listening could have the success. They just need to learn how to channel that energy or that anger or that aggression.
I love that.
I had so much of it. Yeah.
I love that you did that. And look how many millions of lives you've affected for the good, because you alchemized that experience in a way that you could help others. So many people use that as a reason for them not doing something in their life. There's 70% of felons, of incarcerated felons, talk about either, some kind of abuse as a child, or coming from a fatherless home or whatever else. And they use as a reason for them harming others.
And that's what
you alchemized it into something that's so positive.
Yeah. And that's what I feel. I really feel for those people, because I know that could have completely gone the other direction.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, they'll be like, what would you have done if you didn't do what you're doing now? And ironically enough, I feel like I would have just been a criminal.
Yeah.
Because I was so angry.
Yeah.
I was so upset with my circumstances. I was so upset that this happened to me, and why did this happen to me, and why is this my life, and why does that person have something that I don't have? I remember those thoughts, but the gym saved my life. Like it for some reason, doing that action, being in the gym, working out, and I guess because it was related to like the father figure that I didn't have, and then kind of finding them in the gym, I was like, oh, I'm going to prove to this person, even though they're not my blood, they're not my father, it's not a part of me. Just the idea that I was like, oh, I'm going to prove myself to that person allowed me to make my life incredible.
Yeah.
So I am grateful, like, that I found it, or it found me. I don't know how it worked. Truly, I can't really like say this is exactly why. But for sure, that was the driving force that, when I would go as something as simple as a heavy deadlift or a heavy squat, or doing something crazy on video that like maybe, I know this will go viral. Like the switch in my head would turn. They're like, nah, I'm going to prove that I can do this shit. I'm going to prove to everyone that I can do this shit. And that's why I have what I have, was because I didn't have what I thought I should have had. And so yeah, to the people listening, it is just about identifying, like, whatever that love loss or that feeling, like learning, like you mentioned, the beautiful words, is learning how to alchemize that in a way that it is benefiting you and not just continuously hurting you.
Yeah.
And everyone is in control of that, whether they want to accept it or not, or they want to blame everyone else around them for it, or my circumstances are this, so this is why my life is here. Whatever it is, like, you truly are in charge of that. I wish more people would recognize that, because my life is existent because of that.
Yep.
Like, the reason why people would even come up to me, and I go to these events, these expos, and talk to all these people, and I have lines for hours. Oh, I watched your content. You said this. You talked about your life. Because I would do these lifting videos, and I would just talk about my life and my experiences and how I feel. And obviously, I would do a lot of lifting videos where I would, this is how you bench, this is how you do this. But the number one reason why people would come up to me and they would talk to me is they would share, when you talked about your father, when you talked about this is what happened in I can relate to it this way. And that's why I recognize, like, so this is why when I was 26 years old, I was like, oh, this is why I have anything. It's because I didn't have what I thought I should have.
Exactly.
And so it's just like, how do you change the mindset? How do you get?
I think it's a change from blame to gratitude. If you just,
but listen, I'm sorry interrupting, but when I was a kid, I know that now. I know exactly what you're going to say now, and I know it to be 100% true. But when I was a kid, I didn't have I didn't know, there was no like, okay, this is what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to make me better. I don't know what was the thing that actually, like, how did I discern that, okay, this is terrible, but I'm going to use this to make me better? I didn't. It just happened.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel when I have these conversations and I talk to people, it's like, I don't know how I did it other than just doing it. But like,
was there anybody in your life that just kind of inspired you to take this road instead of that one? Did you have somebody you saw that?
No, I was just
beautiful.
just a dude in a gym, and like, I was weak and I wanted to be stronger. And there were other fatherly figures kind of in the gym that were, you know, I would train with them, and I was like, damn, he's really good at the bench press. He benching 315. I was like, I could barely bench a plate. And I was like, damn, I really want to do this. That was it.
So,
that's what I'm saying. I don't know. There was no moment where I was like, oh, aha, I get it.
Yeah.
That moment came, you know, 20 years later, like, because he took his life when I was 6. It came 20 years later when I was 26, and I was like, oh, it all makes sense now.
Yeah.
But when I was doing it, I wasn't recognizing that's what I was doing at all. So that's the interesting part, because I can look back now and say, hey, this is why. And that's why I get caught up and I have these conversations and I try to explain to people, because it's like I can materialize it to everyone now because it's real. But when I talk about it as a kid then, or I think about it as a kid then, it was like I was supposed to do that. And I didn't know why, or I didn't know how. That was like what I had to do.
There's a crazy side thought on it. What if we picked our parents? What if we picked our experiences on purpose to, you know, the difficult things in our life? What if we, before this life what if we're the architects of the whole thing? Not just our architects as we're in the game right now and we're making decisions. What if we're kind of the co-creator of this experience for us? And we knew that by having that difficult thing with this father who yelled at me at this age, or who died at this age, or whatever, that was going to create an environment that would help me grow in and experience things in a way that I never could. You know, the old adage of the piece of coal, the only way that becomes a diamond is with a whole bunch of heat and pressure. You know, so I look at the heat and pressure of my life, and I ask myself, okay, I can look back with gratitude because it's gotten me to where I am now. And I can also look back saying, what if I chose that shit? What if I purposely put these things in my life so that I could have those really hard lessons so that I could come out a better person on the other side?
But that's my question, is how can you choose something that you don't even know you're choosing? Because that perspective that you're speaking to is like, it's, you know, the concept is way different than the concept that we're, you know, learning and we know as in our linear life of we're born, we learn a bunch of shit, we deal with it, trauma, we unpack, we pack, we try to get it out, and then we go towards our goals, and then we try to help other people. That seems like to be most people's cycle. But the thing that you're speaking to is almost as if we were here before, and then we decided that this was going to be my life in this time. That's like what you're speaking to.
Maybe.
Because what else could it be?
I think there's so much more than our linear vision of the world and time. You know, I don't think that time is a straight line. I think time is an eternal round where we can literally see this when we're doing some of the healing work with people. I can in a very real way take them back to that 6-year-old version of themselves that was feeling so hurt and so empty because of this thing that had happened, and have that real conversation with that child and help everything heal. And you're like, well, you can't heal this. This is already past. No, today in the present moment, everything exists right now in this very moment, all the past, all the future, everything. And in a very real sense, we can heal that past. And yes, I believe that we are not just the masters of our own destiny, like Tiffany seeing that picture of that 49ers cheerleader and visualizing that. But I believe it's even more than that we are helping to put certain things into our life. I don't think that it's the law of attraction. It's the law of creation, where our thoughts indeed are things, and we're connected to this greater expansive consciousness of growth and creation that we don't get when we have our blindfolds on and we're living in this linear life.
I think you're right, but we're still speaking in hindsight. So that's my question is, so then do you think that some people are just supposed to do more and some people are supposed to do less?
It's a choice for all. There's no supposing. I tell people, don't shit on yourself. Don't shit on your past, and don't shit on your future. Quit shitting on yourself, right? There's not supposed to do anything. You know, we live in this life rules and supposed to this and whatever else. No, this is, if I recognize, and this is going to piss some people off here, but I'm just going to throw it anyway. I realized that if I'm ever judging another human being, whether it's cutting me off on the freeway, whether it's for stealing $2 million from me, whether it's for selling me a child, if I'm ever judging another human being, there's a 100% chance, not even 99, 98, there's a 100% chance that I don't have all the facts. I don't know if that guy that's cutting me off on the freeway, I don't know if his wife's in the hospital. He might just be an asshole. But even then, even being an asshole, I don't know where that asshole came from. I don't know where he was at as a child and what kind of things are going on in his marital life, whatever it is. Now, he still needs to get a ticket, gets pulled over so he's not putting my life in danger. Even the guy selling me a child, I don't know. He was probably abused himself as a child. There's probably 1,000 bad things that happened to him and 1,000 bad decisions that he made. Now, I can still, I tell people, don't get me wrong. I am not a sympathizer in any way. I've literally put my life in danger hundreds of times to ensure that their innocence is preserved, that innocence is taken care of. But and those guys will go to jail. But I can't judge. I can't do it from a space of hatred. Even if there's a rat in my kitchen, I don't have to let him stay there. He's creating disease. I can remove him, but I have to understand that he's being a rat. In the best version of being a rat he knows how to be. And I can remove him from my kitchen from a place of compassion. I can probably still kill him. He can come back in another life, not as a rat in my kitchen, right? but at the same time, I don't have to be in this energy of judgment, because there's only one person in the universe that knows all the facts of that guy cutting me off on the freeway, and it ain't me, right? So
you seem to see your thought then more lies in timing then, right? Because then all these things we're kind of speaking to, it comes down to, like, for example, myself, I didn't know why I was making those decisions I made until at one point in my life on my linear timeline, it made sense. So to anyone here listening, I guess then wherever they're at, as terrible as it is, or as great as it may be, or as terrible as it may become, it's all the right time, because you're supposed to, this is like, comes back to that idea of you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right.
By choice.
And then it comes down to you recognizing and realizing where it is or where you really want to be to actually make those changes so that you can actually get to where you want to be and what you want your life to look like or feel like or be like.
Yeah. If you're not where you want to be, then you are the master of your own creation. Just make another choice. Where do I want to be?
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful about this is literally every single human on earth has the ability to create a different future than the trajectory they're on right now. Everyone. So meditation and what else are the two main things that keep you on the understanding of that allow you to, because like it's hard, right? Things will happen. Something will happen in your life, whether it's like an ailment, God willing, it doesn't happen, but something bad happens, right? Life is not, it's perfect forever. Something bad at some point is going to happen. Family member, yourself, whatever. What keeps you back on track? What do you use to keep you back on track? In addition to my meditation, I practice a principle of, I'm going to call it detachment. For example, yesterday I was on the phone with my wife and my daughter and her new boyfriend, right? And I was at the store, and I've been literally every single day in a different airport flying, and I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I'm staying super healthy as I'm moving forward on these. And so what are some things I can buy here? And my daughter's telling me, you get this ginger, whatever. And my wife's like, hey, get some Manuka honey, whatever else, right? Yeah. My daughter's new boyfriend chimes in and tells me, you should do this. And I immediately put up this, what the fuck is this dude telling me shit, right? And shut the fuck up. And I recognize. How old is he? He's 25 years old. This guy. Exactly. What do you know? But instead of what I did, I took it as an opportunity to look at that feeling and say, detaching myself from my own feeling. I am not angry. I am not happy. I am not sad. I am in my own total presence of being me, and I'm going to take these feelings and I'm going to detach myself from them. And I looked at that feeling. I'm like, okay, Paul, that's interesting. Where's that feeling coming from? Detaching myself from whatever circumstances and feelings and saying, wow, there's probably something still there.
That was your dad for
from
sure.
my dad.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It was my dad telling me what to do. And I recognized it just face on. I'm like, wow, I still need to work on something there. That was super interesting that feeling came up, right?
It's weird.
And so I've practiced living completely in the moment in everything and realizing, hey, you know what? There's things that are going to come, they're going to go. I practice extreme gratitude for all that is, all that was, and all that I am manifesting. That gratitude for things that you're creating, that you're manifesting in the future, is the purest form of faith. And so I try to focus in each one of my meditations in that high frequency of gratitude for everything in my life. Even the stuff that I'm like, oh, the hell does happen again? You know what? There's something I'm to be learning from this. I'm gonna ask myself what I can learn from my feelings regarding this. I'm going to be grateful for it. I'm going to be grateful even all the crap that happened to me, even the 2 failed marriages and all this crap, because it brought me to where I am today. I would have never met Vanessa if I hadn't, and I wouldn't have appreciated the woman that she is if I hadn't gone through the crap that I did.
You would have never stole Superman's girl.
I never would have if I hadn't faced this.
Bro, it's so interesting. The ability to like let it all go and like allow it is probably the most important piece.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out when you're in it and it's you can't let go. You can't let go of certain things, because I'm fully aware that all of our thoughts, all of our beliefs of ourselves, the sort of like underlying, monologue that all of us have in our minds throughout the day, whether it's louder or softer, is creating our reality. And even when I'm so aware of that, I still let it go sometimes, and it still gets negative. And then I notice that I'm getting closer to that thing that I don't want to get closer to, or that idea of my life being a certain way that I'm like, okay, I don't want this. And sometimes those thoughts get louder. And I'm like, dude, like I know that I don't want that. I'm trying to let it go. I try to do the meditation, and I do all these things, and it's still there.
And it's okay though, because here's the thing: I can sit here and hate the darkness, but the light wouldn't exist without it. I can hate the cold, but the heat wouldn't exist without it. Right? There's a dichotomy in all things, and so to appreciate the fact that I was in this negative energy with my second wife, where we were fighting every single day and all of this negativity. And I look back on it right now with incredible gratitude, because without that, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have recognized the beauty and the light of a really healthy relationship if I hadn't gone through it. I really wouldn't. So I then look at other shitty things in my life today in the same way that I look back upon that shitty time in my life there, and saying, okay, there's going to be a time in my life where I'm going to be incredibly grateful for this thing that hurts right now.
But that voice for you too, it doesn't just go away. It's always there, right? Like it's just about like not accepting it or not allowing it more than you allow the other.
It's a recognizing that there's people that are going to come and go in my life. There's going to be difficult situations. And I also try to reframe it from the finite to the infinite in everything. I say, okay, I'm seeing this as finite. Of there's this person died. Okay, that relationship is gone. Is it, or is this simply a perception of time where there is going to be so much more in the infinite scale? The same thing with, money and resources. Great. That guy just stole a few $1 million. This deal went bad, this thing, whatever else. That's okay. Money is not something that is finite ever. I can always create more. I can take this and use this idea, use this, what I learned from it, and create more value in the world. And so whatever it is, whatever shit I'm going through, is something that I can learn from, I can take some value from, and I can take it from this, oh, my whole life sucks right now, to this is a very temporary, finite experience that's going to help me in the long run. The long run meaning the infinite of
Yeah.
everything that we are.
Taking the same concept back to your growth financially before you sort of got more spiritually awoken, did you have these same moments, or what was that like, that process to the real estate stuff, to making all the money? How did that process go so smoothly for you?
Nothing was smooth.
Yeah.
Can't even tell you how much money I lost. I mean, there was a time where my house, I ended up losing my house to the bank in my 20s, and I had to have a rich friend literally buy the note back from the bank so that I could read it from him. It was all this. It was crazy. I had borrowed a few $100,000 from my dad that didn't even have it at the time, because I was promised I was going to make all this money in this real estate deal I was going to do, and I lost it. I had a lot of hard times, but John Pennington and I are the co-founders of Bridge Investment Group, which is now many billions under management. And people ask John, they say, John, did you see it from the beginning that it would be that big? And John would say no, but somehow Paul did. We were in an office so small that we would literally bump elbows when we turned around. We're paying $350 a month, and that included internet and printer and our desks and our chairs and whatever else. And I remember we had a deal where we needed $25,000 by Friday. And I'm on the phone and I'm calling investors trying to get this $25,000, right? And I hung up the phone, I turned around, I put my pinky by my mouth, and I said, John, we're going to be $1 billion fund someday. And John's like, Paul, we need $25,000 by Friday, right? $1 billion is like as an inconceivable number. And I remember we sat down that night, and he said, Paul, he said, you know that neither one of us have the pedigree, the education, the background to run anything with a B on it, with billions. I said, yeah, but if we build it with integrity from the beginning, we have the vision of where we're going, we put the right foundation put together, then we will attract the right people. And indeed we did. But there was plenty of really difficult times. I mean, we went with zero income for over a year trying to build the fund. And but I look back at all of it with gratitude, because I learned so much from the hard times.
But when you were in it, like, were you aware of how important the mind was? Like, were you aware of it as you're aware of it now?
Yes, because when I was 14 years old, I remember going into my dad and I said, Dad, how do you, I was getting really picked on at school. And I thought, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to figure out how to make money in life. And I said, Dad, how do you become successful? What does that look like? And he gave me two things. He gave me a book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, I've read that.
That helped me understand that every person I talk to is 1,000 times more interested in themselves than they are me. And if I can really put myself in their shoes, that makes all the difference. And then he gave me a second, it was an audio program by Brian Tracy called The Psychology of Achievement. And that laid the foundation for me of understanding that my thoughts were things, that if I just simply looked in the mirror and shaved a millionaire when I was shaving and visualized that everything would happen. And then a friend gave me a book called The Science of Getting Rich. And if you follow the genealogy of all of the self-help, mental, everybody from Brian Tracy to Tony Robbins and everybody, a lot of them got their start with a company called the Nightingale Conan Corporation in the 70s and 80s that created a lot of content of helping people see that their thoughts were things and that mindset was so important. Well, their company started with this little green book called The Science of Getting Rich. It's only like this little teeny thing. You read it in an afternoon, but it talks about how literally our thoughts are energetic powers that connect with the world around us, and that there's a thinking stuff in which all things are created. This table, this book, this microphone, this was all created in somebody's mind before it was created physically. So it was a spiritual creation before the physical creation. And so I started learning these concepts early on, and that's what made all the difference, is realizing that, okay, it doesn't matter if I don't have the support or not. All I have to do is recognize how powerful my thoughts and my words are in creating this world of abundance that I'm looking for in my life.
But then at some point you have to be able to translate it to like real tangible things.
Oh yeah, you can't sit around and just believe. This whole faith without works is dead. That's a business principle, right? You can't just wish your way into having $1 million in your bank account. You've got to do the work. But if you're clear on where you want to go, I tell people, if you don't have a very specific, clear goal of where you want to go, you'll get nowhere with amazing accuracy, right?
Yeah.
But if you're super clear on where you want to go, and then have that visualization of and that gratitude for it, then literally these things will start coming into your life. Understanding where you want to be is so much more important than the track on the way there. My sister used to be a travel agent, and if I called her up and I said, "Hey, I want to go to," her name is Tiffany too, just like my first wife. I said, "Tiffany, if I want to go to, I want to be on a 747 jet tomorrow at 3:00. She would say, "Well, where do you want to go?" Well, I want to make sure that it has, a red tail and, 2 engines on the wings. Where do you want to go? Too many times in life, we're so concerned about the vehicle or the next step. If instead I just told her, "You know what, Tiffany, I want to be I'm speaking in New York on Thursday night, so I need to make sure that I'm there in time." She would tell me what time to show up at the airport, and it wouldn't matter to me what the vehicle looked like. Whatever one was there that was going to New York, I would be on that flight, right? Yeah. So in life, identifying the end result. My end result was my vision board. I wanted to have a beautiful home and helicopter and Humvees and all this cool guns and everything else. I wanted that lifestyle. I wanted a basketball court in my basement, right? And I wanted to, but it's just like the Tony Robbins thing where I never visualized what I wanted in a relationship. As soon as I visualized and wrote it down, exactly what it was, as soon as I identified exactly what I wanted, then boom, I probably should have put on there that I didn't want a girl from New Jersey that drank beer and said, but I forgot those. So I ended up without a Vanessa who drinks beer and says,
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? But so if you get super clear on where you want to go, then, and then have gratitude for it and then do the work, then all of a sudden the universe conspires to create that for you.
So the writing it down sounds very important.
It's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just have this whatever. Writing it down, putting it on pictures, having the, like my first wife, the picture of her cheerleader on her bedstand, whatever it is, that clear visualization every single day. This is what I'm working for.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have 2 examples like that. When I was I must have been I don't even know how old I was. I had to be like 5 or I don't even know what age. I have this like chicken scratch written down that I wanted a house with 2 pit bulls and a pool. And that's exactly the house that I'm in today.
Nice.
But it's like it's so crazy to think that I literally must have been like anywhere from 4 to 12 years old when I wrote that down. I know that's a long span, but that's I know this is. I have pictures of this shit. I should pull it up, but I wrote it down, and the fact that is my reality today is almost just kind of absurd to me because I didn't like write it down and then look at it every day. I didn't write it down and then all the things we're speaking about now, putting the intention behind it, reading it, trying to make it a reality. I just wrote it down. Was like, this sounds really cool, and then it became my life. And then another one, I remember when I first started the social media stuff, I was like, I want to make, I think I said I want to make $4 million by the time I was like 24 or something. I didn't do it, but very soon after I did it. And I did really recognize it writing it down. And the first time because again, when I was a kid, I wrote that down I must have been some school assignment that they were like, what do you think like your life's going to be like? I wrote it down the second time about the money when I was a little bit older after I read Think and Grow Rich. Yeah. And they were like, write down this Napoleon Hill book. Uh-huh. And that's when I first started really writing things down. And it absolutely changed my life. Absolutely changed my life. So I fully agree. And I guess I kind of beat myself up a little bit sometimes because I need to get writing things down again.
Yeah.
I need to get organized.
And don't be shy as to what it is. You want to be like my first wife, you girls who want to be an NFL cheerleader, write it down. I remember Tony Robbins tells a story about how he was, I think it was in Boston. We were walking into something. This bum came up and he says, "Can I just have a quarter? Just a quarter." And Tony looks at him. He says, just a quarter. That's all you want. Just a quarter, right? So Tony opens up his wallet and he goes through a bunch of $100 bills in there. And he ends up in his pocket, he finds out a quarter. And then he says, if you would have asked me for more, I would have given you more. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's how the universe responds to anything we ask. It was funny. So back in my Paul F. and Hutchinson days, I actually wanted, one of my goals, I wanted to have a yacht filled with Playboy bunnies. That was on my list, right? Now, yeah. I hadn't accomplished that when I was like, damn, I missed that opportunity while I was Paul F. and literally 2 months ago, me and my wife Vanessa, we're in Miami. This dude calls me up. He goes, Paul. He said, "What are you guys in Miami?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "Why don't you come on my yacht this afternoon?" I'm like, "Cool, man. Yeah, we'll come. Yeah, me and Vanessa will come." We get on his yacht, and as we're walking up the yacht, boom, the Playboy sign is all the way across the back of the yacht. Right? he had taken his yacht, and they had put the stickers of the Playboy to film a piece. Now they all kept their clothes on, damn it. But I was literally, for the entire afternoon, I told my wife, I says, I manifested this.
I wrote this.
I didn't write it down. That's one I didn't write down. But that's what I had told people. Yeah, that's my goal. I want to have a yacht filled with Playboy bunnies.
It's crazy because it is that simple, but it seems so much harder.
Yeah. It and it's super beautiful. Literally, you can just write it down, create it, visualize it, believe in you, and and then just be open to the idea that the right people at the right time, as you're pushing, you got to work. I mean, I was working 14, 18-hour days sometimes to build the fund, right? But the right people showed up at the right time to create this miracle.
I think it's harder when the wrong people show up and you're like, you get derailed. Yeah. That's when it gets a little bit more complicated.
Well, maybe they showed up so that you could learn a lesson that you needed to learn at that point so that you could get to the goal that you were creating.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man. Well, it's been a pleasure.
This has been fun.
Pleasure.
I really thought we were going to talk about undercover child rescue missions, and
we kind of did a little bit, but no. But
this was way better. This is literally what I love to talk about. This is my favorite subject.
I had an idea because I read a little bit about you, and once I read about the and normally I don't do really any research. I'll know enough about what you've done, and just I'm genuinely curious. But I read about the psychedelic stuff, and I was like, oh, I know a conversation because that's the conversation I have with everyone, especially people who have crazy success. I always find it so interesting, their experiences with it, because you are very, not unique, but in the sense of you have so much financial success, and then it seemingly like you found the spiritual stuff later on in life. And that's why I was like, oh, this is the conversation I really want to have. So thank you so much for coming. I know you have this book. We
got The Sound
of
Freedom.
That was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago came out?
Just this last week came out on Amazon. So, a lot of people leave the Sound of Freedom movie and they want to do something. I'm going to go rescue kids. The worst thing you can go is go to Mexico and try to go undercover. You're going to get arrested. You're going to get shot.
Or
right?
hurt, yeah.
Yeah, or hurt. But, or the best thing you can do is go home and hug your kids. And a lot of people will leave the movie wanting to do something, but without any tools. So, the first part of this, I call it the making of an undercover operator, which I talk about some of the training that a lot of the operators went through in situational awareness, how to read a room, how to identify the victims, etc. Go through the emotional transformation I went through with seeing the kids and that moving away from that ego self, etc. And it's not dark. It's a beautiful light at the end of the tunnel. The whole thing is the darkness into the light. And but the whole last part is liberating humanity, and that's pretty much what you and I spent the last half hour talking about. How do we heal humanity?
That's good.
So super beautiful.
And yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. And you came on a really short notice too, so thank you, man.
I was in Dallas yesterday, and I was supposed to be in San Antonio. I'm on podcast tomorrow, and they said, "Hey, you get to LA for like one day."
Yeah.
You know what? To go see Brad, that would be super cool.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for coming.
Super
That
grateful.
was really, really good, man. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to tell the audience and tell the people watching?
Liberating Humanity. You can find me on social media on Liberating Humanity, or just go to liberatinghumanity.com. You can get some information on how to keep your kids safe and about the retreats. We have a bunch of links on there about how to navigate this whole world of facilitators and shamans who half of them don't know what they're doing, and a lot of them do. And so I would encourage you to follow some of those links, get some information on.
Yeah, there's a lot of phony actors in that space too. I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have the right stuff, I honestly, like, that stuff completely changed my life, which is, again, kind of why I want to talk more about that overall than anything. So
I'm
thank you so much.
incredibly grateful for you spending this time with me today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Cool.